This is the FBI. We have a warrant.
They handcuffed me and my wife out here. They wanted me to sit on the curb while they were carrying this out, something that I refused to do. They wanted my wife to sit on the curb out here, that she refused to do.
As I was coming out, this big old drone met me.
The only revolutionary organization that's done something here on the ground practically for African people is the one that's come under attack. Institution that offers a community radio station, a newspaper, a commercial kitchen, an Aquaba Hall rental space, and community office for our organizers. That was the building that has come under attack.
You need a breach? What do you need?
Need one.
I don't know.
Let's hold that with money.
Hold
Thank you.
We will build a movement of white people that says hands off the Uhuru movement.
They see in the African People's Socialist Party a vanguard for the struggle for the liberation of our people. They see that because not just what we do here in the United States, but because we had the temerity to do like Garvey, to do like Malcolm X, and take the struggle of black people around the world.
Uhuru comrades, this is Mwezi. I hope everybody is tuned in right now, wherever you are. I'm in a different situation right now. We are on the ground here in San Diego and we're getting some things set up, but I just had to be in the community because, comrades, we have to be on the ground in this fight back. And before I go any further, before I go any further, I just want to salute those who are joining us right now from California. I see we have Missouri in the house. I see we have Maryland in the house, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, and Ohio in the house as well. And I'm going to pull up my co-MC in Southwest Florida, Uhuru MQ. Good to see you, comrade. Looking forward to seeing you. Gainesville, Florida. This is important because I'm not just naming cities in this geographical area that we understand as America. I'm naming the various fronts of the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa Fight Back and the Fight Back Coalition. And we're going to learn more about this coalition and who we are. But I really wanted to take a moment today to, acknowledge that we are in a period right now where the world is changing. The world is changing right before our eyes. And we are not here to just explain the world, comrades. We are here to change the world. And we see it changing already. And we see what is, incessant violence and genocide, which was only brought about and introduced into the world as we know it through colonialism. And this is the understanding that I've come to as a student of Omali Yeshitela and of the African People's Socialist Party. And so I just want to salute everyone for being here. And I'm just giving a little bit of time. It looks like people are coming in the room and it's great to see you. Uhuru and Angelica from San Diego, right on. Good to see you, comrade. So before I go any further, I want to introduce my co-MC who's on this with me, Akile Anayi, who is a member of the African People's Socialist Party, one of the Uhuru Four. And thank you, comrade, for being here. It's good to see you. We have a very important topic that we're going to discuss today. And, it's, like I said, it's about not just explaining the world, but changing the world. And this is a period where we are seeing, through even the Fight Back Coalition, for the first time, people, groups and organizations and anybody who just wants to be free, uniting that, basically it's enough. And this program today is going to give us a chance to learn about what's happening right now in Palestine. It's happening right before our eyes in the most violent way. And here we are with an opportunity to not just not just support through this teaching, but to educate us on what needs to be done to help overturn this parasitic system. Because as colonized people around the world, we understand that we are the host. And this parasite is dying and it's at its last grip and its last breath. And it is so exciting to see it go down. So Uhuru, Director Akile, thank you for being here.
Uhuru, Chair Mwezi, well, I just really want to appreciate this overview and this teaching, which is extremely important, especially in the war of ideas, which we know, we were able to see, this video here that shows, the kind of the demonstration of the world changing and how people are, coming to the right side of history, standing with the colonized and oppressed, of the world. And these are the things that they don't want us to hear about. And, the fact is that everything we've been bombarded with, especially like if you're in the belly of the beast in the US, you can't even find, information from the point of view of the colonized, of Palestinians. And everything is, coming in support of this illegitimate Israeli settler-colonial state. So this is extremely critical, like you said, not just for the purposes of teaching us history, but also instructing us on what we have to do at this critical moment in history as the world literally is turning, for the better towards a future, that's going to be constructed through the liberated hands of African people and colonized people all over the world. So.
Uhuru. Yes, Uhuru, comrade. And with that, we have some of the those who are on the fronts of this fight back as really special guests that we have with us today. So I just want to, without further ado, acknowledge that this program will be packed with everything that we need to know and to get us connected and forward to November 4th. So comrades, I'm going to begin by reading the statement. And this statement is a statement of the African People's Socialist Party, the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition. And we're going to pull it up on the screen. If you do want to read, you can also go to handsoffuhuru.org and you can read along with us. And this statement, we call for colonialism must go. And this is our stand with Palestine. Uhuru. Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition stands in deep unity with the Palestinian people's historic anti-colonial counteroffensive against the US-backed colonial settler state of Israel. The African, Indigenous, Mexican, Filipino, Cuban, Venezuelan, and other oppressed peoples of the world stand together with Palestine in a united front against colonialism, our common enemy. Our unity with Palestine goes beyond well-wishing. We recognize that their struggle and ours are interwoven in our shared global anti-colonial project to overturn the parasitic, blood-sucking colonial mode of production built on the stolen labor and lives of enslaved Africans and on the stolen land and genocide committed against the Indigenous people. From St. Louis, Missouri to Gaza, it is clear, a new day in history has arrived. The colonial world order built on our suffering and exploitation is coming to an end. Evidence of this new era of anti-colonial resistance is exploding out the world in Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, Haiti, or Haiti, Palestine, and in African, Mexican, and Indigenous communities throughout the US. The colonial powers know the oppressed peoples are breaking free of their stranglehold. On July 29, 2022, they deployed hundreds of militarized FBI forces on 7 homes and offices of the African People's Socialist Party and Uhuru movement, including its founder and leader, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, sparking the formation of the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition. These raids and the subsequent indictment of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the Uhuru Three on bogus charges revealed not the strength of imperialist white power, but its weakness and decline in the face of a rapidly changing world, of which Gaza is another shining example. We denounce all of the brutal, desperate acts by the global counterinsurgency to try to stop the forward motion of human progress. This includes Israel's ongoing barbaric, genocidal slaughter of the Palestinians in Gaza. The Israeli military has launched over 1,000 airstrikes in the past, this was 3 days ago, but 3 days, killing over 900 Palestinians and obliterating mosques, hospitals, and other health facilities, medical teams, and ambulances. Palestinian bloodshed extracted brutally by Zionist thugs is what birthed the state of Israel. Israel was formally established in 1948 as a culmination of a genocidal process known as a Nakba, in which Zionist terrorists slaughtered Palestinians, burned their villages, and expelled nearly 1 million of them from their homeland. In 1967, Israel expanded its occupation of Arab land to include Gaza, West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Golan Heights. The founding of Israel on Palestinian land was the initiation of a constant, unending state of warfare against Palestinian people for the past 75 years. Over 200 Palestinians were killed by Israel in the past year alone. Thousands of Palestinians are locked down in Israeli prisons where they are starved and tortured. Israel has announced a complete siege, a quote unquote complete siege of Gaza, cutting off all access to electricity, food, water, and fuel in the densely populated open air prison, where 2.1 million Palestinians, more than half of them children, have been suffering under an enhanced vicious blockade for the past 16 years. We reject ruling class's media's slanderous designation of the Palestinian People's Resistance organizations as quote unquote terrorists. The Palestinian people have the right to resist. And while the US media claims that Hamas waged a quote unquote unprovoked attack on Israel, the truth is that the mere existence of Israel itself is a provocation against the Palestinians. Throughout its more than 50 years of existence, the African People's Socialist Party has united firmly with the Palestinian people. Chairman Omali Yeshitela has consistently stood shoulder to shoulder with the Palestinians in their just and righteous struggle for national liberation. This stand by the APSP represents the continuum of an anti-colonial unity demonstrated by the Black liberation movement historically as embodied by the great Malcolm X, who visited Gaza Strip in 1964, just 1 year before he was assassinated by the FBI and US government. As Chairman Omali Yeshitela has stated, what is known as quote unquote Israel is in fact a white nationalist, illegitimate colonial settler state built on pillage, land theft, and genocide, no different from the colonial settler states of the US, Canada, Australia, South Africa, and New Zealand. Israel receives more US funding for weapons than all other countries combined. Israel operates as a military outpost of US imperialism in the Middle East, facilitating access to resources and serving as a tool for US colonial policy in the Arab world and in Africa. The courage of the Palestinian people to stand up and fight back is an inspiration to colonized people everywhere. As this statement is being written and read, the US is spending more ships, aircrafts, and munitions to the Israeli military, but no amount of bombs will succeed in annihilating the will of the Palestinians and oppressed colonized peoples of the world to fight and win our liberation and independence. Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition calls for all freedom-loving people in the US and around the world to converge on Washington, DC on November 4th, 2023 for the 15th annual Black People's March on the White Coalition for Social Reparation, turning point in the emergence of the anti-colonial free speech movement, and will uphold the leadership and demands by Africans, Indigenous people, Palestinians, and all who fight and resist colonial oppression. Black People's March on the White House will demand the US government drops the charges on the Uhuru 3, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, and Uhuru Solidarity leaders Penny Hess and Jesse Nevel, who face bogus, quote unquote, foreign agent charges for fighting against genocide for African people and for reparations. The Black People's March will demand the release of all political prisoners, including Mumia Abu Jamal, Leonard Peltier, and the Holy Land Five, the Palestinian men imprisoned by the US on false charges of quote unquote material support for terrorism. All out to the Black People's March on the White House, November 4th. Hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa, free, free Palestine, colonialism must go. Uhuru. Uhuru. So I just want to say free, free Palestine, and colonialism must go. And there is no other way to put it, but like we said, we are here to make this real. I just want to say that I really appreciate, and Director Kile, I know you would unite with this, because we are not just saying these things, we are not just idealists. We have, material means in order to compete and to contend with this apparatus. And so I'm saying this because we have a goal to continue to raise resources towards the fight back for the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition. And we will have our comrades come on later to help us meet our goal, but we want people to start right now by going to handsoffuhuru.org/donate and making a contribution to today's program. So we're gonna go ahead and welcome up. I think our next speaker is here, and if not, St. Louis on the ground can let me know. Director Kile, we're gonna go into our teaching now. So let's get our pens out and let's go ahead and start. Uhuru.
Well, let's see how we got here.
Yeah.
Uhuru. So if we could pull up the slides. And all right. So first and foremost, want to just echo what Comrade Chair Mwezi has said. And we'll need to go to the beginning here. But just want to echo free, free Palestine. And, just totally denounce the illegitimate settler colonial state that is Israel, which is, a part of a colonial mode of production, a whole entire colonial project that, is reflective of learn from the best settler colonialists, including those of which forged what's called the United States, what's called a North America today. the different so-called countries inside of Africa and the various settler colonies that exist throughout the world that have been defined by the colonizer, whose names have been removed off of its, and the indigenous populations removed, from these places and renamed, rebranded by the colonizer. So we're here to put all of this right side up. And that's why we stand in full solidarity and in support of the Palestinian liberation struggle that's going on. So again, want to say free Palestine. So on October 7th of 2023, the Palestinian resistance movement in the Gaza Strip, led by Hamas and Islamic Jihad, launched a historic counteroffensive against the Israeli settler-colonial occupation regime, reportedly firing over 5,000 rockets and fighting by ground, sea, and air using hang gliders with parachutes. Hamas has named the resistance campaign Operation Al-Aqsa Flood, with the name Al-Aqsa referencing the sacred mosque in Jerusalem, which has been violated and desecrated numerous times by Israel, and where Palestinian worshippers have repeatedly been attacked by the Israeli colonial occupation forces over the past year. The Palestinian freedom fighters courageously broke through the militarized borders of the Gaza Strip using bulldozers after ingeniously deploying drones to dismantle the Israelis' remote surveillance technology and machine guns, deliberately misleading the Israelis on calls they knew were monitored by the IDF. They brilliantly took advantage of the arrogance of the Israelis, who assumed they had the Palestinians under control and over-relied on technology to do their colonial dirty work for them. And this should remind us of another courageous struggle that we've seen in history, the Vietnamese Revolution, where you saw these colonial powers descend on Vietnam, thinking that they were going to win that struggle. And, the people of Vietnam pulled together everything they had, used all of their brilliance, their genius, and crushed the colonial powers, including the US. And so that was a huge defeat. And, we're saying 2, 3, many more Vietnams, and we're seeing it right now with Palestine. So the Palestinians reclaimed control of every Israeli settlement along the Gaza border, seizing control of a police station, checkpoints, the headquarters of the Southern Israeli Military Command, and attacking over 20 Israeli military bases, capturing over 100 Israeli occupation soldiers. The Israeli army was taken completely by surprise. And the Hamas military commander, Mohammed Daif, issued a statement declaring, "We have decided to put an end to all of the occupation's crimes. The time is over for them to act without accountability. Today, the people reclaimed their revolution, corrected their path, and returned to the march of return."
The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has launched a genocidal war on Palestinians in Gaza. They have cut off all access to food, water, electricity, fuel, and medicine. Thousands of airstrikes have been launched, destroying entire neighborhoods, obliterating apartment buildings, mosques, hospitals, and other health facilities, ambulances. 400,000 Palestinians are homeless in Gaza Strip now, and the Israeli military has given the Palestinians 24 hours to evacuate from northern Gaza, where over 1 million Palestinians live. This is blatant genocide, right? Being committed by the Israeli government with the full support and advanced weaponry provided by the US government. Over 2,200 Palestinians have been killed, including hundreds of children, and almost 9,000 have been injured in Israel, in Israeli airstrikes. So it's clear the state of Israel is expected to launch a ground invasion of the Gaza Strip in the coming days. And this is what we are experiencing on today around the world. And of course, the US has pledged its full support, right, for Israeli genocide, Palestinians sending more aircraft, ships, and munitions to, from the US President Joseph Biden, who has extended the US government's ongoing support for Israel, stating that US support for Israel is quote unquote rock solid. So here we can see the US, again, this pledge and what this is meaning for our colonized brothers and sisters. And it's to understand that the Palestinian struggle is a struggle against colonialism. So what is happening in Palestine today is colonialism. And I'm sorry, Director Keeley, I have a little contradiction. Can you pick up right there for me?
Absolutely. So as Chairman Wazy was just saying, what is happening in Palestine today is a war for national liberation. And I know we've seen a lot of definitions by the colonial media, by the colonizer about what this struggle is all about. We've heard terrorist attacks and things like that. No, what we're seeing in Palestine is a war for national liberation that is part and parcel of the global anti-colonial struggle exploding throughout the world. The struggle of the Palestinians is our struggle, the struggle against colonialism. As defined by the African People's Socialist Party, colonialism is the total domination of a whole people by a hostile foreign state power for the economic benefit of the oppressor nation. Colonialism is not a policy of Israel or the US or France. It is the mode of production underlying the existence and power of each of these colonial entities. It is a mode of production in which European wealth is built on stolen African, indigenous, and colonized human beings, labor, land, resources in a process that established the existing world economy. That's extremely critical, to understand, because the situation in Palestine and the US support of this settler colonial regime is not because they are even opposed to what happened to the Jews in Europe. It's economic interests that are there in the Middle East. And this serves as, an ability for the colonial powers to be able to continue sucking the blood and resources off of the places in which they've carved up for themselves. All right, so Chairman Weezy's back.
Yes, thank you, Director Akile. Parasitic world economy born from the assault on Africa and the enslavement and colonization of African people. So as we just discussed, this colonial mode of production is the foundation of the parasitic colonial capitalist world economy born from this assault on Africa and the invasion of Africa and enslavement of millions of African human beings as the first commodity of capitalism, and the historic and the ongoing colonization of Africa and African people all around the world.
It's a colonial mode of production built through the genocide against the indigenous peoples of the so-called Americas and brutal theft and occupation of their land by European settlers. As Chairman Omali Yeshitela has said, without genocide, slavery, and colonialism, there would be no United States of America. Colonialism is the basis for the wealth of the US, Europe, and the white colonizer population. Settler colonialism is when the colonizer invades and inhabits the land of the colonized, expelling the natives from their homeland and establishing a settler colonial government to reign over the lives of those who remain. Israel is the settler colonizer. Palestine is the colonized. Israeli Jews are the settler colonizers. Palestinian Arabs are the colonized. The main contradiction, therefore, is not Israeli quote unquote apartheid or racism, but settler colonialism itself. The theft of the Palestinian land is the basis of the current explosion of colonial violence against the legitimate resistance of Palestinian people. This settler colonialism is no different from Zimbabwe, South Africa, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and indeed the United States. The US is in fact the largest illegitimate white nationalist colonial settler regime on the planet Earth, forged through the genocidal murder and displacement of the indigenous people and their confinement into concentration camps, euphemistically labeled reservations. The State of Israel was founded in 1948 as a consequence of a vicious genocidal process in which Europeans, in this case Jews, slaughtered and expelled the indigenous inhabitants of Palestine and stole their land at gunpoint. All of the land currently occupied by the State of Israel is land that belongs to the Palestinian people. The ideology created to justify the State of Israel is called Zionism. Zionism was developed by an Austro-Hungarian Jew named Theodor Herzl in the late 19th century. Herzl authored the book, The Jewish State. As Herzl saw it, the project of establishing a Jewish state in Palestine was the means by which European Jews could seek to advance their interests within the colonial mode of production. He was clear that it would require the elimination of the Palestinian people. The Zionist movement under Herzl worked to win support from the major European imperialist powers for the Zionist colonization of Palestine.
Uhuru. And Zionism, was from its inception and the entry point into the colonial mode of production for a sector of the European population. As the chairman has pointed out, the Zionist movement in Europe was consolidated less than a decade after the Berlin Conference. This was that conference where in 1884, these countries, which now if you look at the UN, it doesn't look any different, represented, waged this attack on Africa by, chopping up the land like a piece of pie, and where the imperialist governments gathered, right? And they carved this up amongst themselves. And in fact, Palestine was not the only place considered by the Zionists as a location for the Jewish, settler state. They also considered Uganda and Kenya. So Zionism, again, was the entry point to this colonial mode of production and to, as a sector of the ruling class and how they wage it out. Uhuru. And you can find many, go ahead, Georgia.
And well, just that you can find, you don't have to take our word for it, even though all of this is a matter of historical record, that, you can hear and find quotations from Zionist leaders, including Herzl and Jabotinsky and others leading up to Netanyahu today, openly proclaiming their understanding that Zionism is a colonial project and that it fundamentally requires the oppression and destruction of the Palestinians. And Jabotinsky says here, quote, Zionism is a colonizing adventure and therefore it stands or falls on the question of armed forces.
Palestine and Palestinians had existed, right, for thousands of years. And we have some images here, but the geographical entity today that's called Palestine has been a recognized country, at least since Roman times. Palestine was a thriving Arab society, mostly rural, with vibrant, urban centers, and the coastal network of ports and towns boomed through their trade connections. European crusades sought and failed to conquer Palestine in the 11th century. And rich agricultural industry, small towns, and historical cities served as a population of 500,000, on the eve of the Zionist invasion. And so, we've been here. Nobody discovered us, right, Uhuru? And so here, Muslims, Jews, and Christians coexisted in Palestine before the Zionist invasion. So Muslims, Jews, Christians, again, coincided during this time. And this is contrary to the myth perpetuated in the bourgeois media that the so-called Israeli-Palestinian conflict is simply a religious feud between the Muslims and the Jews, and et cetera. 1916, the Sykes-Picot Agreement, European colonizers carve up the Middle East. So from the late 1800s onwards, waves of Zionist settlements began happening in Palestine, with European Jews buying up land through the Jewish National Fund, laying the foundation for the eventual Zionist takeover by force. Then in 1916, in what was known as the Sykes-Picot Agreement, European colonizers carved up the Middle East, just as they did in Africa, signing a secret treaty between French and British to divide up the Middle
Looks like we have a little bit of breakup in the location where Comrade Chiramwezi is. Okay, I'll go ahead and pick up for her and so we. Oh,
thank you. Continue just to avoid that happening again for this one. Thank you, Comrade.
Repeating that in 1916, in what was known as the Sykes-Picot Agreement, European colonizers carved up the Middle East, just signing a secret treaty between French and British to divide up the Middle East into quote unquote areas of interest / influence. And in 1917, with the Balfour Declaration, British officially pledged their support of Palestine. The Balfour Declaration was a public statement issued by the British government in 1917 during the First World War, announcing support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. In 1920, after the First Imperialist World War, the newly established League of Nations meets in Italy to officially divide the Middle East up between European imperialists. This is when Palestine comes under British control. It was also during this period when the imperialist powers of the world were involved in Southwest Africa, a period during which Marcus Garvey proclaimed Africa for the Africans. This period in Palestinian history, when it was under British control, is known as the Mandatory Period. It was during this time when the invasion of Zionist settlers into Palestine accelerated. Between 1936 and 1939, the Palestinians rose up in what became known as the Great Palestinian Revolt, fiercely resisting British imperialism and Jewish settler colonialism. They were ultimately crushed by British using counterinsurgency tactics, collective punishment, demolition of homes, later adopted by the Israeli state. The Great Revolt was sparked by the assassination of Izz ad-Din al-Qassam, a beloved Arab resistance leader, in 1935. Today, Hamas's military unit, the Qassam Brigade, is named for him, and the rockets fired by Hamas are known as the Qassam rockets, showing the continuity of struggle by the Palestinians going back nearly 100 years. In 1947, the British turned Palestine over to the United Nations, who partitioned the land between the invaders and Palestinians. Jews at this point, still a minority, get more than half the land. Palestinians would get 42% of the land, while state for the Jews was to stretch over almost 56% of the lands. The Jews found this arrangement unacceptable. They wanted all of the land, and so they initiated what became known as the Nakba. This process of extermination and expulsion is known by the Palestinians as the Nakba, the catastrophe. It was a profoundly brutal genocidal onslaught. It involved gangs of Jewish terrorists, primarily groups like the Stern Gang, the Irgun, and the Haganah, working in conjunction to expel and destroy the Palestinians. The Zionists expelled 80% of the indigenous Palestinians from their homeland. Over 530 Palestinian villages were destroyed. Between 1947 and 1949, at least 800,000 Palestinians were made refugees beyond the borders of the state. Zionist forces had restored Palestine and killed 15,000 Palestinians in more than 70 massacres. Today, there are more than 7 million Palestinian refugees scattered around the world. And in 1960, war to steal even more Arab land. After the so-called Six-Day War, the Israeli state expanded its colonial territory, West Bank, Gaza Strip, East Jerusalem, and Syrian Golan Heights. The Palestinian people have always fought fiercely, including during the First Intifada, or popular uprising, which lasted from 1987 to 1994, and the Second Intifada, which lasted from 2000 to 2005, during which the Israeli government built a separation barrier in the West Bank. So Palestinians accepted resistance ever since the imposition of a settler-colonial regime. And as we see this resistance happening to Intifada in 1987, that the Islamic resistance movement, also known as Hamas, was formed. Second Intifada, the Palestinian people voted to elect Hamas as their leadership in the so-called occupied territories. The US and Israel responded to this expression of the Palestinian people's democracy in the Gaza Strip and imposing a genocidal blockade preventing food, medicine, and other supplies from entering Gaza, a blockade which has been in place for more than 16 years. And we see this type of process, so-called democratic process happen throughout the world. The US does this to so many different countries we've seen, just within recent years, initiating coups and initiating blockades and things like that in order to overturn real democratic processes in these areas. Gaza is often described. The same description could be used for the ghettos, barrios, and concentration camps. Africans, Mexicans, and indigenous people face the same colonial. Despite the US resistance campaign by Hamas, reality is that the state of Israel has been in an unceasing state of war against Palestinians for 75 years. Between 2008 and 2021, over 5,739 Palestinians have been killed by Israel. At least 121,438 Palestinians have been injured. 1/3 of these casualties have been Palestinian women and children. As Chairman Omali Yeshitela has stated, Israel functions as a military outpost for US imperialism in the Middle East. Israel is used by the US to secure access to resources in that region and to provide US imperialism with a strategically secure world and Africa. The US provides more military financing to Israel than all other countries combined. US annual resources to Israel is nearly $4 billion. Part and parcel of a capitalist world economy sitting on a foundation of colonialism on the backs of African people. Player in the trade of stolen diamonds from Africa, extending its reach. Ivory Coast, colonial proxy armies in Africa that slaughter the people and uses the massive revenues from the diamond sales to bankroll their genocide of the Gaza and West Bank. The colonial apartheid regime, African Jews from Ethiopia, despite living called Jewish state, are treated viciously. Lynch mobs and police have attacked African people in Israel, and a report revealed that over 40% are in prison during their service. African women living in Israel have been subject to forced sterilization. In 2009, Israel launched airstrikes in Sudan, killing 119 African people. This painted along the wall of the separation barrier in the West Bank demonstrates unity between African and Palestinian mode of production. The Palestinian struggle is our struggle. Chairman Omali Yeshitela in the Uhuru in profound anti-colonial unity with the righteous struggle for national liberation of the Palestinian and Arab people and the destruction of the Israeli colonial settler state, as well as all neo-colonial petty bourgeois Arab regimes that do the bit in Europe to suppress the people and facilitate the theft of their. When Africans were engaged in resistance, social media with encouragement and information on how to defend themselves against tear gas. In August, the Front of the Liberation of Palestine issued a statement in support of the African resistance in Ferguson, stating,
Yeah, appreciate you, Director Akile. And I think say that this raid that happened on the 7th of the Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement here in St. Pete, outside of the Uhuru House in St. Pete, Omali Yeshitela and Deputy Chair Owners on the Palestinian offices in August 2022, and which in fact was weeks later in August, as you can see here, is like strikingly similar to the footage of the FBI raids in the Uhuru movement. This is the military, in your hood. And as we know, comrades, though, the world is changing. To unite with the Palestinian people in their struggle to overturn their colonial domination. All around the world, oppressed peoples, all colonized peoples are rising up, and colonialism is on its deathbed. And we're going to put it on its deathbed through this fight back of the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition. We are calling and we are winning. We are building the anti-colonial free speech movement. This is a movement that will take the struggles of all the people to the end. And as we say, we are calling on people to join us on the ground, all out for November 4th, the Black People's March on the White House, the 15th annual Black People's March on the White House, from DC to Los Angeles, to London, to Pretoria, in occupied Tanzania. We say free, free Palestine, say hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa, say drop the charges against the Uhuru 3, not one step backward, forward ever,
backwards never.
Uhuru, Director Akile. So we're going to keep moving on with our program, and we just want to acknowledge a speaker who was not able to be here today, Naveen Ayesh, who's a member of the American Muslims for Palestine, and as we know, are happening right now. So we appreciate and just want to send solidarity. Speaking of solidarity, I'm going to also invite today's teach-in. And it's an important question. It's the Jewish question. And we're bringing who is one of the Uhuru 3, Jesse Nevel, who is the chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And he is on the Jewish question as a member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement and through the lens of African internationalism. So I want to appreciate you, Chair Jesse, for being on Louis Uhuru.
Uhuru. Would like to expressing what a great honor it is to have the opportunity to participate in this incredibly, I want to salute Chair Mwezi Odom and the presentation that was just given, Director Akile, the Hands Off Uhuru campaign. And I also want to deeply salute my leadership in the African People's Socialist Party, Chairman Omali Yeshitela and Deputy Onazane Yeshitela, and all the leaders of the African People's Socialist. Everything that I have come to understand and can express today through being and working under the leadership. I also want to salute and acknowledge Penny Hess, the chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee, who is also here with us today. And as was mentioned, I am a member of and working under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party to organize in the white community with this specific strategic assignment to win other white people like ourselves to stand in solidarity with Africa and to fight for reparations to African people. And so as assignment to organize who are also Jews. I was raised in a Jewish family, and therefore, like most Jews, where I was taught that to be Jewish is to be loyal to the state of Israel, is to betray your people, or even to hate them as a so-called self-hating Jew. More than half a century, it is true, an oath of Jewish people have given to the state of Israel. It is also clear that today, the anti-colonial struggle has the Israeli colonial settler state. I saw a video earlier today of a Democrat who came out to say, "Not in our name." And this is good. We salute this. We applaud Jewish people, including in Israel, where many Jews in this who live there, to question and to criticize the actions of Israel, but also to do more than that. We have a responsibility to completely oppose the Israeli colonial Palestinian land. As Jews, we have a responsibility to unite unconditionally with the right of the Palestinian people to resist, to fight. We have to deal with this question because the explanation given for the existence of against the Palestinian people is that it is being done for the protection of Jews, that it is being done to secure the interests of the Jewish population. And so this means that literally, not figuratively, the brutality and genocide that is being carried out by the Israeli military as we speak is being done in our name as Jewish people, under a Jewish white and blue flag, a Jewish Star of David, by a government that calls itself the Jewish state. So there's no way around. In making the argument that this is done for the Jewish people, inevitably the first thing that will be invoked and promoted by the colonial ruling class and the Israeli government is the idea that the creation of the state of Israel was necessary because of what happened to Jewish people in Germany, in Europe, in the 1930s and 40s, in what is referred to as the Nazi Holocaust. The idea that the Nazi persecution of European Jews made the Israeli settler state necessary begs the obvious question. Who was it who put the Jews in the gas chambers of Germany? Was it Palestinians? No, it was not. It was white people. It was other Europeans. And so as Chairman Omali Yeshitela has posed the question, if the persecution of European Jews by other Europeans justified the creation of a Jewish state for Jewish protection, then why, the chairman asks, did we not take Frankfurt or Berlin? How did it make sense for Jews to protect ourselves from European Nazis by going to Arab people's land and stealing their land and committing genocide against them and creating a colonial settler state on their occupied land? It doesn't make sense. Because the truth is, the creation of the Jewish state was not really done as a form of self-defense against European violence and colonial white power. It was done by a sector of European Jews with the full support of the colonial powers of the world as an avenue. This sector of the European population could integrate into European imperialism, could advance the colonial mode of production at the expense of the Palestinian people in a system built on the backs of African people. As Chairman Omali Yeshitela has taught us, this question of the so-called Holocaust and its weaponization by the imperialist ruling class, however, is even deeper than that. Not only is it used to justify the torture and extermination of the Palestinians, but it is also used, as Chairman Omali Yeshitela has stated, as an ideological tool of imperialism to silence Africans, Arabs, and all colonized peoples when they struggle against their oppression. It goes back to the very origin of the word genocide, a definition, a term created by a Polish Jew named Raphael Lemkin after the Second Imperialist War, after the persecution of Jews in Europe, and adopted as the legal definition of this new term, genocide, by the United Nations, which means that, as the Uhuru movement has pointed out, there was no word for genocide when King Leopold of Belgium slaughtered 20 million Africans in the Congo, There was no word for genocide when tens of millions of indigenous people on this land were slaughtered by European settlers and forced into concentration camps, euphemistically referred to as reservations. There was no word for genocide when thousands of African people were lynched and hanged from trees and burned alive and tortured and mutilated by white terrorists in the United States for over 100 years at the turn of the century. And when African people went to the United Nations in the early 1950s to use Raphael Lemkin's definition of genocide to charge the United States with the crime of genocide against Black people in the US, Raphael Lemkin himself denounced them and said that they were actually functioning as agents in a Russian conspiracy, which is exactly what they are saying now about Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the Uhuru movement for doing the same thing. The experience of European Jews at the hands of other Europeans is elevated in the colonial historical narrative to the ultimate crime ever committed by human beings against other human beings. And in some schools in Florida, it is even illegal to compare anything else to it. I believe it is important for Jews to publicly reject this notion, because when people question this idea, which is at the very heart of the ideological foundation of the state of Israel, you can earn the wrath of the bourgeoisie by being labeled an anti-Semite, a term which can end careers, destroy livelihoods, and in some parts of Europe, even land you in jail. In the year 2020, Chairman Omali Yeshitela was scheduled to speak at a conference on reparations at San Diego State University. He was disinvited from speaking. His free speech trampled on. The organizations putting on that conference for having chairman speak because they said Chairman Omali about Israel and Jewish people. And I found the quote, they actually quote, and I want to read it to you because ironically, the statement that caused these Zionists to ban the chairman of San Diego State, to me, sums up perfectly the message that needs to reach the brains of Jewish people around the world. He said, however, they killed them. They were not killed by Iranians. They were killed by white people in Europe. The chairman have a responsibility to denounce the illegitimate solidarity with the just struggles of the Palestinian Jews was capitalism and other white people in Germany and other places. So don't put this thing up. These were the chairman's words. The Jewish Zionist student organization, this message here from the chairman to Jewish people everywhere, to turn our backs on white power. It is time to stand with our interests represented on their flag, to launch missiles, to wipe out 1 million people in a genocidal, forcible entire neighborhoods, to destroy. It is time to move beyond white revolutionary socialist peoples. That requires we go beyond sympathy and take on our wisdom. The Jewish voice must be for a free, independent Palestine, for the total and complete dismantling of the illegitimate Israeli colonial emancipation of Palestine, yet two-state solution where the enslaved slaver. The Jewish voice must be in concentration camps to justify another thousands torture, slaughter, and exterminate. Condemn the violence on both sides. To condemn the violence on both sides is to condemn the Palestinians and condone the Israeli side. Full stop. I get to say, I support your right to resist, but not that way. The final thing I would like to say is Gaza. Palestinians are colonized, Africans are colonized in the US and around, a prison of nations where African, Mexican, and indigenous people of colonial captivity, resistance movements to give lip service or well-wishing country to Tel Aviv is necessary. We have a job to do right here in the belly of the beast. So again, the call to Jews is a call to take action, to do our part in the anti-colonial struggle. That means organizing in solidarity that puts us in unity with all of the colonized and oppressed peoples of the world, fighting the same enemy as an anti-colonial revolutionary demand. And for those Jews who ask, well, when the Palestinians are free, what will happen to the Jews? What will be expelled from Palestine? What becomes of the struggle to destroy colonialism? This by the stance that we take. So my message to Israeli Jews today is the future looks like a free Palestine, a free Africa, free African people, a free indigeneity with the rest of humanity. That means we have to sip of the African revolution and we have to fight. African revolution, unity through reparations.
Reparations. Uhuru, Chair Jesse, just really want to salute that profound statement and in action, and that is African internationalism. As we say, white, deepening that question, as we have just characterized it as so, comrades, we are going to speaking next, and as the chairman is up and ready, I just want to because we have a packed house from Houston, Texas, to St. Louis, Los Angeles, California, Maryland, Braddock, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Chesapeake, Florida, St. Pete, Florida, Flossmoor, Illinois, London, and Fort Myers, Florida, Lexington, Kentucky. So who has come here to help deepen this Socialist Party and founder of the Uhuru movement and founder of the Burning Spear newspaper and the African.
Uhuru, comrades, thank you so very, very, very much. This incredible teaching, what has been occurring up to now, outstanding presentation. The entire introduction to that presentation has just been oppression and oppression of the peoples of the world. Some of us, millions of people in solidarity with the people of tremendous, because one would not know around the world in solidarity with Palestine if on the information that's provided to us. But the fact of the matter is that the peoples of the world are sympathetic, and those people who are conscious on the planet Earth to this kind of system that locks us into states versus host, and just trying to understand what is the origin, what is the source, what is the basis of all these contradictions we are confronted with. That's what African internationalism that we've been hearing up to now is expressing. We want to get as quiet as it's kept. This discussion is not a question against the Jews. And I want to make that quite clear. In fact, this is something that opens the door to Jews to join the rest of us in terms of fighting against colonialism. It's been said now, the presentation by Jesse Nevel made the point that this whole country and there's a colonial mode of production. Look at how it actually is, as opposed to simply nation throughout this world economy, this whole social system. You cannot domination for a success. There's not a country in the world that does not rely on the colonial domination of its success. And I don't care where that is in the world. I don't care whether or not they themselves are colonized. They exist and participate in the world economy. It's a world economy that has its origin, that owes its existence. First of all, creation of a world economy for the first time in history through transporting Africans to various Americas. You're hearing about the process of creating a world economy. Throughout the world, throughout what they now call the Americas, killing the indigenous people to take this land envelops the entire planet Earth. All of the economic activity in the world context of that world economy. There used to be extraordinary revolutionary movements and a consciousness of revolutionary philosophy emerging that made the assumption that the workers of the world would be the ones who would benefit for the new world in order for there to be freedom. There used to be a time when you would see revolutionary movements happening in China, revolutionary movements happening in Russia, et cetera, based on those assumptions. Korea, all of that based on those assumptions. They were talking about how all the peoples of the world could be free, but the missing ingredient, the thing that was not understood, and this was one of the contradictions of what has been characterized as Marxism, which is something we talk about Marxism based on Marx's utilization of the scientific method of investigation and analysis called dialectical materialism, something that's wasted on Marxists, unfortunately, because what we did was utilize this method of investigation and analysis, and when we came to was conclusions that are different from the conclusion that Marx came to as it relates to how the world could be connected and how the world should develop and who and what was going to take to make that happen. And what's going to take to make that happen, of course, is that those people who were characterized as by Marx, as primitive accumulation. That is the foundation upon which the entire social system rests. Those people, that's where the source of liberation, the emancipation of everybody is based on that. And that's where the workers of the world will be, the workers of the world owe their existence to the colonial mode of production. So we're saying that if you want to end a world of oppressed and oppressors and slave masters, then you assault colonialism. And not just as a policy of a particular country. Perhaps when Portugal started off in something like 1415, perhaps we were looking at a policy from Portugal. But it soon and very rapidly turned into more than a policy, as more and more of the entities that we now know as Europe, entities that came into existence that became identified as Europe through this process, it soon became more than just a policy, but it became an actual system. It became a world economy. It became a mode of production that locked all of us into it. So we're not just talking about fighting a policy in occupied Palestine. We're talking about a mode of production that's locked us all into this particular relationship. That's why we have no hesitancy when we talk about Palestine. We call on the Jews to join the rest of the world in fighting against this social system that's responsible for killing Jews in Europe that we are talking about. It was this social system that killed the Jews. And so Jews have to be opposed to it. And so you come up with this ridiculous argument that somehow, in addition to the fact that they're protecting themselves from things happening by taking Palestinian land, that somehow it's theirs because God gave it to them 6,000 years ago. They're chosen people. What's the difference in a chosen people who's taken this land and a chosen people who call themselves Nazis and talking about Aryans and stuff like that? The chosen people. And all the chosen people, they're doing this in the name of being chosen people, and they murder people and they do the worst kinds of things, because to become a chosen people is to dehumanize every damn body else. And that's what they've been able to do. So that's what happened to us. We became dehumanized. That becomes a philosophy. It becomes a part of the definition that springing from a mode of production that has its origin in slavery and colonialism. Along with that, there is ideas and a system of the philosophy and institutions that spring from that reality, and that's murderous. So you have people whose conscience as an American, there was no such thing as an American. An American, that's a Portuguese name, if I'm not mistaken. America Vespucci, was that Portuguese or Italian? The Italian. So the point is, however, that this is something that was named and imposed on the people. There was no such thing. So the first identity, that collective identity, who came to this country is from an Italian. It doesn't to this land. And so when you start talking about attacking the social system, then there's a huge stake in this, because all of the white people owe their identity to this process of enslaving Africans, taking the indigenous lands. And that's generally true of the whole world that we live in. So you have philosophy, you have systems, you have organizations institutionalized that justify murdering Palestinians, murdering Arabs, murdering Africans, and the rest of us and that is defined as civilized. So here you have civilized behavior coming from the most uncivilized and bestial activity that the world has ever seen. Nobody has ever seen the kind of stuff that we've seen occur on the planet Earth subsequent to the emergence of this colonial mode of production. This is what we're looking at. And yet it's those are the ones who define what is civilized, what is legal, what is democratic, etc. So you can have a situation where somebody can attack and take the people's land. You got the whole land. You got the whole land that's been taken from the people. You have a whole population now that comes in and takes their land, achieve their identity at the expense of the Palestinians, because this is where the identity of Israel has come from. They resurrect a dead language and make their language Hebrew and impose everything, all the laws, etc., on the Palestinian people from whom the land has been stolen. So as we said, that slavery for the enslaved, freedom is illegal. For the colonized, freedom is illegal. So everything that the Palestinians do to try to be free is illegal.
And what is legal is keeping them from winning their freedom. This is the kind of world that we live in, and this is the thing that we have to recognize. And a difficulty that we are confronted with in part is the inability of the so-called left, the white left, that is easy to accept the definition of capitalism and communism, et cetera, as long as it stems from a contradiction between what? Between the so-called industrial workers and the industrialized bourgeoisie, which is white people. As long as the struggle is one that relies on that, and that's what we see throughout history. That's what we're looking at right now. So we can talk about how the Palestinians who come across in hang gliders, they're not using F-15s, they're using hang gliders to come in. And they're talking about how this is so mysterious and how they undermine all this British intelligence. You have to be able to get around the intelligence of the oppressor. Every Black person who lives in America is every day working to get around the intelligence apparatus that they have. Every Palestinian, every oppressed person on a daily basis, because if you don't get around the intelligence, you can't live. They put together processes and systems. They take your babies, they do all this other kind of stuff, and all the time we're working how to get around this stuff that they impose on us. So the Palestinians use a very sophisticated process of using primitive devices and stuff like that to fight against this highly mechanized and highly well-defined scientific kind of process they set up. And they've done say, wow, look at that, a damn hang glider. A folding chair. The thing is, that becomes necessary because the oppressor always has the guns, always has the plans, whether it's the biggest stick, depending on how long ago it occurred, or whether it's the biggest gun, the most far-reaching, most scientific ability to crush people, kill people. The oppressor has that, not the oppressed. We wouldn't be the oppressed if you had that kind of colonial free speech movement. Well, all the colonized people, and it's happening under the hands-off Uhuru movement. Free the Uhuru 3, drop the charges, etc. Black People's March on the White House, 15th annual mobilization, Black People's March on the White House. And so I hear this argument, this complaint that if you say it's the Black People's March on the White House, then people will be less inclined to attend it because they think only Black people could march in it. Well, I'll be damned. So is that the reason they didn't come to all the other marches we've ever had? Is that the reason they don't join with all with the Mexicans and indigenous people mobilization because they said Black people are indigenous people? No, the colonizer always has excuses for not being able to unite with the colony. They will unite with you in the struggle, some generalized kind of thing that does not identify the fact that we are struggling for the liberation of Black people. We're struggling for the liberation of Mexican people. And I can say that without any hesitation, just as when the people rose up in this magnificent revolutionary movement in Nicaragua. I didn't know a Nicaraguan, but we organized the first mass movement for Nicaraguan, the struggle against Nicaraguan colonialism, a neo-colonial operation. You don't have to know them. I'm opposed to oppression, opposed to colonialism and neo-colonialism. That's why we joined. That's why Black people have always joined these movements all around the world. We didn't have to say, it's just a ridiculous kind of specious argument that we run into, even by the white people who love us. Yeah. And then I hear this hypocritical criticism of Hamas. Say, we just opposed to everybody who's killing innocent people, and Hamas did this very brutal and killing all the innocent people, et cetera. And we believe that the repression should stop with the Palestinians, but this Hamas thing. So this is just the most worst thing. Like they were really doing stuff to change conditions before Hamas got involved, right? Which is ridiculous. But they do say they were doing things. They say, see, there's certain stuff that the Biden administration and this administration have made certain kind of changes, and they believe in thus and thus, et cetera, because we have this nice, innocent kind of project saying don't hurt the Palestinians. But the right of the Palestinians, agency, themselves, to move for their own liberation. If you believe in Palestinian liberation, and if the only thing that's manifesting itself to advance the struggle for their liberation, you can't say I believe in their liberation except for the liberators, for those who are leading the struggle. If it weren't for those who are leading the struggle, I'd be down with it. No, 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 no. That's a specious kind of argument. And this is not an argument for Hamas. This is an argument for integrity, for uniting with the struggle of colonized people who will set the terms, who their leaders are. The Palestinian people elected Hamas as their leadership. They elected them despite everything that the United States and Israel did. They elected them. And then when they won the election, they did everything they could to kill it, to strangle them, etc., because they believed that Palestine should be free. Right. And they don't have the right to believe that. And so I think it's really important to say that. And so what we're seeing is the whole world, the whole colonial mode of production is under extraordinary stress right now. We see it in Nigeria. We see it in Mali, where people are rising up. The colonizers are trying to move forward. We see it and have been watching it for a long time in Venezuela, Cuba, trying to complete this process as a part of taking power over our own lives. This is a struggle against the colonialism. We see this struggle in St. Louis, Missouri. We're not just people who are protesting. We're talking about Black people must be free, must be self-governing. That's what Indian colonialism is all about. That's what Black power meant in 1966, that changed the character of the struggle of Black people in this country from one just whining and begging, et cetera, and say we want power, Black power. That's an anti-colonial demand that put the demand of Black people right on course with the peoples, oppressed peoples around the world. And so I just think it's really important for us to say that we're at a different place now, and the people have to have power. And you cannot say that the people can't have power because you don't like the leaders of the ones who are calling for power. You can't say you don't want Black people to have power because you don't like Uhuru or something to that effect. Or you can say it, but you will be exposed as a consequence of things like this teaching that we're doing now. We want to take people beyond simply recognizing that this happened on this date, this happened on this date, but try to tie the whole thing together in terms of what we have to struggle against. We have to struggle against the colonial mode of production. You can't get to communism if that's what your interest is. You can't get to socialism if that's what your interest is without destroying colonialism. The whole thing rests upon the foundation of colonialism. That's why we've said the road to socialism is painted Black, right? And that's what we are struggling for. So when we talk about socialism, a new world, we are talking about a world where there are no slaves and slave masters. There are no bosses and workers and things like that. That the whole world, and we are arrogant enough to believe that we can make it happen. And that's part of what this teaching is about. So this is not a call as such to denounce Jews or to say hooray for Hamas, except it represents clearly the interests of the Palestinian people, et cetera. This is helping us to identify the essence of this contradiction that we are confronted with, because it happens every day, every week, every year. There's a new this, a new that, et cetera, and all of it comes from this profound contradiction. I'm trying to be expeditious here. So the Palestinians, as it has been inferred, are paying the price right now for its internecine kind of brutality against Jews by Europeans who never paid who have never paid a collective price for the Holocaust. Europe never paid a price for the Holocaust, never paid a price for the Holocaust. And now the Palestinians are paying the price for this contradiction that happened there. And this Holocaust has its origin immediately anyway on the colonial mode of production, its founding, slavery of African people, the theft of land, the social system came from that. It's what created the Holocaust. Even when you look at the philosophy that come from people like the Nazis, which is similar to the philosophy coming from the Zionists. These special people, etc., for whom the rules don't apply, that applies to the rest of us because we're somehow special, because we're these special people. And we have to challenge that. Jews are just human beings like the rest of us. I refuse to join this notion that somehow these Jews are some kind of weird or different people that I hear coming from anti-Jewish folk, and I refuse to unite with that assumption coming from Jews. You're just like everybody else. You understand? You take your chances just like everybody else. The same laws of society apply to Jews as they apply to Africans and everybody else. And so this whole notion of being this special people, et cetera, is bogus. And, you know, they talk about God gave them what they characterize as Israel now 4,000 years ago. That's worse than Paul McKees. Yeah. You know, I mean, he's a hell of a slumlord, landlord, et cetera. You know, so what kind of God is that, just going around giving people their territory, et cetera? So that's garbage. And so I wanted to say that. And the definition of Israel Palestinian question as limited to this specific issue is not acceptable. It's not acceptable. We don't accept that, and I'm sorry if it upsets anybody. I'm not really sorry. I'm hoping that it causes pause. I'm hoping that it causes pause. The objective here is to win people to a better understanding than what they have got from the colonizers, from the oppressors. That's Jews, that's other people as well, to have a better understanding, to participate collectively in overturning social system of oppression and genocide. Yeah. Oppression and genocide. We want to end that and not salute it, et cetera. So, and I want to just reiterate, it's already been said, I say it again, because they're talking about how this Hamas attack on this unprovoked attack on Jews. The fact is, Israel, the very existence of Israel is a provocation. Yeah. You know, its very existence came about at the expense of the rights and life of the Palestinian people. And there's an ongoing effort right now to make the Palestinians disappear. Even the so-called get out of town, but in 24 hours, get out of the country in 24 hours. Even the so-called corridor, that safety, is a part of the process to empty Palestine of Palestinians, to get them to leave out of Palestine. And so now you have the Jewish state becoming and taking over the entire territory, as they've been doing incrementally, except they've had the contradiction of having to deal with Palestinians in the country. So if they can push the Palestinians into Jordan, that's why Egypt is blocking the border, part of the reason why, because they don't want the Palestinians to have to come there. They want to keep, you know, they want to, the Israeli state would push the Palestinians out of this territory, then it becomes a non-Palestinian territory, just like Golan Heights and other places that they took all of these territories and land. That's part of what it is that we are looking at, and we reject that completely. And we recognize the power of philosophy, and that Karl Marx is absolutely correct when he says that philosophy, when it grips the masses, becomes a material force. And we've got Jews who do have recognition in history of oppression and brutality, et cetera, and who've been offered as an explanation, as a way out of this Zionist garbage that I should not say garbage, even though just because I'm trying to say it in a way that allows people to be able to hear what I'm saying, but it's really misdirection. It's really a philosophy of imperialism, et cetera. And we want people to reject that, just like we reject, to the extent we are competent enough to do so, we reject all philosophy, imperialist philosophy. That's why we reject the whole notion that somehow that this land that we're on, I'm talking now about the African People's Socialist Party anyway, that somehow the land that we're on now is something that, because we were here first, and it doesn't really belong to the indigenous people or the 5 states or the Black Belt South, et cetera, which, regardless of our intentions, what it does is puts us in a trajectory that's responsible for the condition of the indigenous people. Part of the profound contradiction of the indigenous people is the theft of their land. And everything that's being done to keep them from having their land. For me to join in and somehow claim the land, I've just joined with everybody who's with the white people, the powers that's taking the land and keeping the people living under starvation and worse kinds of oppression. So we reject that. We unite with the indigenous people here in the struggle to reclaim their land and what have you. And we do so in full solidarity. We recognize this land is the land of the indigenous people. And I know and believe, I'm confident that it's part of the process, and what I know about the indigenous struggle anyway, that we got a place. As we earn that place as part of the struggle, uniting with the indigenous people. I don't have any fear that I'm going to be evicted by the indigenous people once we make this collective revolution. My eviction problem is right now in Redbud here in St. Louis. My eviction problem is Paul McKees and all these people who are gentrifying our communities and things like that all around this country and much of the world. So I just wanted to make those kinds of statements, and that Jews, have a responsibility like the rest of us. And you have to reject Zionism, and which is simply another face, another characterization of colonial imperial power. You reject that and join with the rest of us in struggling for our liberation. And that's the way to freedom. That's the way to life. That's the way, unless you take down the what do you call those security bars and all those other things that you think can protect you from the fact that people want their freedom and want their resources back. Become one of the people and fight for the freedom and the resources as one of the people, as opposed to trying to stand outside of that and maintain this relationship with the imperialists. So I wanted to just go ahead and say that and express appreciation again for this really important teaching. And I think we have to try to do this as many times in many places as we can, so that we can inform people. And people won't always do what they have the information to do, but they can't do it unless they have the information. And that's what this is about, to provide information. And because there are even people who are in this discussion now who know some of the dates and some of the facts that we're talking about, but I think we've helped them to connect the dates and the facts in a way that never before has occurred. And African internationalism, which is a philosophy born out of the struggle of African people, but it's applicable to all the people around the world. Because if a philosophy don't just speak to the question of African people, a philosophy is something that defines one's relationship, place in the world, a relationship in the world, and the future that we're looking for. And that's a relationship we have with all the peoples on the planet Earth. And as Africans, we can do that and have done that. And so I just wanted to say that, and to thank everybody for being here and all of this incredible presenters that preceded me. So Uhuru, comrades.
Uhuru, Chairman.
Uhuru,
Wow.
Chairman. Uhuru. Well, and just really want to just salute that brilliant, presentation. I mean, and it was this analysis, African internationalism, which we know is Chairman is the author, the theoretician behind this theory, that allowed us to even be able to sum up the situation in Palestine, through this analysis, the correct explanation of, how we got to this place, and what the whole struggle is about, and how it's a whole global struggle that's happening. It's not just this thing isolated over in one region of the world, but it's something that we're all connected to, having been forcibly locked into the colonial mode of production. So as we've been saying since the beginning of this, the struggle in Palestine is our struggle. It's the struggle of all freedom-loving peoples, and especially that of colonized peoples. So again, really want to salute the brilliance, the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela, and also really want to appreciate everybody for tuning in with us again. And I want to just make an announcement. We're back up now, but
before you do comment, Akile, I think it's really important to say about, they say that Palestine or Gaza was attacked because they invaded Israel, occupied Israel, etc. But the reality is we didn't have any hang gliders here in St. Louis. We had no hang gliders in St. Petersburg, Florida, when they attacked offices and buildings here. The fact is they attacked us because of colonialism. It's the colonial crisis that's beating them up. The fact is that I want to make that point because we're looking at the same thing when we see what happened on July 29th here, when they brought armored vehicles and they cordoned off entire African community, collective terror for the people so that the people would know not to be connected to an anti-colonial struggle. That was the assumption that they did it, that they were working from. So, and we didn't use a single hang glider, didn't have any, couldn't afford any, didn't know where to get them, didn't know how to use them if we got them, et cetera. So it was no hang gliders involved. It was just the ambition of our people to be free. And they attacked us because of that. In attacking us, they were attacking the African people here and attacking the Hamas as they're attacking the Palestinian people. And the only reason they attack Hamas is because Hamas is out in front. And the only reason they attacked the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement is because we're out in front of the struggle for the liberation of our people. I just wanted to make that point. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Absolutely, Chairman. Thank you. Thank you for that intervention. Just really want to unite with that. You know, being out in front, and being out in front means being able to explain the world and put it right side up. And you, Chairman, as well as the African People's Socialist Party, you know, was, you know, born in with the intent, with the objective to be able to turn the world right side up by eliminating the colonial mode of production. So again, really salute your leadership and that profound presentation that we just got. This has been such an incredible teach-in, and it's really important because as we mentioned earlier about the war of ideas and how, you know, we're not even allowed to have this discussion. First of all, if you have this discussion, you'll be raided at 5 o'clock in the morning, just like we were, you know, just to be able to express and to be able to sum this up. They don't want us to be able to have this discussion. They don't even want you to be able to have an analysis that comes close to, you know, how the world actually is. So much so that during this broadcast, Facebook and YouTube sabotaged our lives. We've restarted the lives now, but we've, you know, redirected people to come onto the Zoom. But they basically, we were able to hear the presentations, but they had it frozen on one screen for over 30 minutes or so. And people were still watching because they just wanted to hear, you know, what was being stated. But that's just the lengths that this system will go to, and it's, you know, it's control over, you know, every platform of idea, you know, information distribution, you know, trying to block out the ability for people to be able to see something, hear something that does give them pause, even if they can't even immediately unite with it, but it gives them, you know, the opportunity to see and hear something totally different from that of which they've, you know, had to, you know, be bombarded with their entire lives. So this is the future, and, you know, they can't keep us underground. So just really want to appreciate this powerful teaching. And I know, Chair Mwezi, we want to, because we are raising resources, we have a $500 goal for today. So before transitioning into our next speaker, which we're very excited to have all of our speakers, I know that we want to just do a little announcement about where we are and how much we got to go.
Yes, thank you so much. And just want to join you in saluting and just this entire teaching and the opportunity for us to be able to, as we say, take up all the democratic space and just providing the ideological, you know, clarity that we can make a conscious decision about how we forward this this fight back. And so, you know, we are calling on people to support this fight back, Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition. We have a goal today of raising 500, and I want to appreciate those who have already gone to handsoffuhuru.org to donate. I want to thank Comrade Amanda with their $100 donation. I want to appreciate Carpani Burns with your $20 donation, and MQ for $15, and that takes us, we have raised 135. So we want to appreciate those who have already, you know, heeded the call, and we're going to check back in later on. So I will turn it back to Director Akile as we introduce our next special guest for today. And again, you are here for the Free Palestine teach-in, and we are on YouTube and on Facebook. I wanted to say that again. You can go back, and this is where you can get the recording as well. Uhuru.
So as we go into our next speaker, I just think that it's important to note, you know, especially some of the things that the chairman said, but what we see happening in Palestine and the history around the occupation of Palestine, that, you know, in terms of where it is that they learned how to, create and form an illegitimate settler colony, you don't have to look any farther than what it is that they've done to what's now called North America, what's called Canada, what's called the United States, and stolen Mexico, all of this land, this territory that has a new name, new definition imposed on it by colonizers. But prior to this illegitimate settler colony, there was a people that existed here, that had civilization here and still exists, but live in these what's called reservations, which are actually concentration camps, which are these open air prisons that we've compared to the conditions of Palestinians in occupied Palestine. So to be able to speak with regard to that and the whole and also just a real astute teacher around counterinsurgency, we have Comrade Ward Churchill with us today to offer a few words to this teaching. So want to go ahead and welcome up a comrade and really salute your participation here today. Very honored to have you on with us. So let's bring up Comrade Ward Churchill. Uhuru.
Hello, my relatives. I introduced you in Lakota, not because I am Lakota, but because it's quite germane to where I would like to begin my remarks. But first, my commendations on the content, the quality of the presentations in this teaching thus far. A lot of what I was going to say has already been said, but maybe I'll take a different angle on it. In any case, I'm supposed to address the relationship between the Palestinian liberation struggle, indigenous people on this land, Lakotas, and 400 odd indigenous nations within the US 48 states portion of what they call North America. There's hundreds more north of that artificial boundary that they drew, creating what they call Canada. And there's more in Alaska, the Aleutian Islands. And the US, since it has reach across water to encompass its claimed home territoriality, you've got the Anakbayan and the Hawaiian Islands, and areas that they grab called American Samoa or Guam with the Chamorros. So you've got Samoans and you've got Chamorros and you've got others as well. The best that I have ever heard it put was back in 1982 when the Israeli Defense Force, so-called, was fighting a more or less conventional war with the Palestine Liberation Organization, based largely at that time in Lebanon, and they'd driven north and laid siege to PLO leadership, many of its fighters in Beirut. But this created a problem because they needed a negotiating partner to resolve this. And ultimately, the Zionists in charge determined that the only negotiating partner that they could conceive of would be Yasser Arafat. And Yasser Arafat was besieged in Beirut. They couldn't call off the siege of Beirut, but they needed some place for Arafat to go so he would not be killed or worse, captured in this process. And at that time, American Indian movement, and I was a participant in this, was engaged in an occupation of a chunk of territory just outside of Rapid City, South Dakota, in the Black Hills, the Hisapa, sort of the crux point, central point of territorial meaning, for lack of a better way to put it. Spiritually important, very important to the Lakota people. We were in the process of trying to reclaim that under provision of the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868. We had a law on our side. They had numbers. And of course, as has been discussed by virtually every speaker today, they had firepower on their side. But we were hanging. This was a 3-year continuous occupation by a main force, and then several years beyond that by a group that was left to maintain the area that we had seized and held. But there was a press conference being held with regard to the land occupation in Rapid City. In the middle of all this that was going on in Beirut, Lebanon, the quest to find some place for Arafat and PLO leadership to be relocated to. Ultimately, that turned out to be Tunisia. But Russell Means, who was pretty much the head man in the Yellow Thunder camp occupation in Black Hills, we had named the site Winkanyan ZTO Spy, Yellow Thunder community, actually, rather than camp, but it appears in the press as Yellow Thunder Camp, so I use that term. In the middle of the questioning from AP, UP, all the reporters that were gathered for the press conference, which was to be about the situation with our occupation and where we were going, what our plans were, blah, blah, blah. Somebody asked about the situation in Lebanon and that conflict there. And Russ Means, very much on point, said the Palestinians of North America offer sanctuary at Yellow Thunder Camp to the American Indians of the Middle East. That defines the nature of that relationship about as well as I believe it's possible for it to be defined. And what's going on and has been going on in Palestine, the colonial beachhead, as Jabotinsky once referred to it, the colonial beachhead for European penetration and control in the Middle East on a long-term basis, is virtually identical, point by point. Now, the demographics are wildly different. The technology is considerably different than what it was at the onset here. But what's been referred to as the mode of production, the mode, which goes beyond production, the mode of relationality that's involved. And if you will, the philosophy of white superiority, white supremacy, white domination, colonialism, all the rest of this is virtually interchangeable. And the methods that are used and the rationales that are used historically here, as well as contemporary, in contemporary terms, and that have been used by the colonial settler state of Israel since the initiation of its project, which really predates 1948 and isn't really consummated until 1949 with the expansion beyond what it was supposed to comprise territorially speaking. There was an expansion involved in the Nakba. It wasn't simply clearing of the land, as we were cleared from the land to make way for the superior breeding stock and the superior, self-anointedly superior utilization of our land base here. The Nakba wasn't simply the clearing of Palestinians from land and community and way of life within what the UN had signed as the territoriality of the newly founded state of Israel. It was an expansion of that state right there from the get-go, and it's been that process ever since. just as the Palestinians have been living in internment camps, refugee camps is a term they use, ever since that happened, 75 years. You find exactly a parallel to that in not simply the reservations, although that would be adequate, but like at Fort Snelling, this was actual, you could call it accurately a concentration camp that was established for the Santee Dakotas as they were being cleared, having been starved into a state of warfare, their resistance. The army overpowered them, put them in concentration camp, held them there. You had a mass execution of the leadership and then a removal to even worse conditions, a place called Cherry Creek in the Dakota Territory, totally removed from their homeland. And no particular right of return has ever arisen. That's what was happening in South Dakota in 1982 when the war in Lebanon was occurring, was that we had won under colonial law, under colonial law. It was found that the Black Hills had been wrongly taken from the Lakotas clear back in 1877. And they offered compensation. They assigned compensation. They assigned 40 cents per acre for the territory taken. And the Lakotas refused it. This is, according to US government data, the most impoverished group of all groups identified by census in North America. The Lakotas in the Sioux complex of reservations, and they refused to accept payment at that rate, or at any rate, or so they said at the time, for the HISAPA. So the Supreme Court went back and reconsidered and offered 5% simple interest accruing since time of taking. And it came out to $110 million or something like that, which in 1982 is a lot of money. And they did a referendum on that too, and they refused that as well, at which point the Supreme Court now administered justice. You never wanted to sell your property. We took it. We've acknowledged the theft, but you cannot have your land back, which is the only thing you were specifying would be justice, return of the stolen property. No, you have to accept compensation. You have to accept compensation from the party that stole the land. So they placed it in an escrow account in Albuquerque, New Mexico, the whole amount of money that the Lakotas had refused, and it's been sitting there gathering interest ever since. Like the Palestinians, the Lakotas remain among the most impoverished people in all of North America. They still refuse to accept payment for property they never wished to sell. Not property in a Lockean sense, but property in a completely different sense that has to do with their responsibility and relationality to the land and to others. A radically different view of how the world should work from that of the colonizer. They continue to refuse to accept the premise that they're ever going to sell HISAPA. And the slogan is, the Black Hills are not for sale. Not then, not now, not ever. There's something to be learned from that. This has to do with the ways that the United States has self-justified, entitled itself to exercise a proprietary interest and jurisdiction over its own land base, identical, if you think about it, to what's happening in Palestine to the Palestinians at the hands of the Zionist entity that controls. It's a bloody situation that has emerged, but it's no bloodier than the situation that has existed really since the foundation of the Israeli state. The other piece of this has to do with the utilization of labor to develop the land, as they call it, which is to say, destroy the natural balance of the land, the environment, and so on. And that's where the importation of African slave labor came in. Dispossession of indigenous owners, reduction of indigenous population, displacement of indigenous population, and the impression of Black labor taken from the indigenous societies of Africa with devastating genocidal effect there to create the entity that seems to be, by and large, considered natural and inevitable, sort of hegemonic condition. We've got to unpack the whole thing, see relations not only among ourselves, but with the environment in a way that conforms to the value systems and understandings of the indigenous peoples who inhabit, reside within the various points, not only in the US and Canada, but around the world, because this was a global process and it's an ongoing process. Get it down to the point where, as Chairman Omali and everybody else has said all day long, each people is, as is stated in law, rhetorically, is free to exercise its rights and its responsibilities within their customary territory. There is a place for all relatives within that. Chairman Omali was correct that in fighting this through to its logical conclusion, where colonization in all forms has been repealed, retired to what Trotsky called the dustbin of history, there's a place for everyone, so long as they do not attempt reassert this sort of colonial economic, social, political order in any of its forms. And I think probably I've spoken about as long as the time allotted to me, so I thank you all for listening. Oh,
Thank you so much, Professor Ward. I think, as we know, there's never enough time to really go through it in depth, but I just want to really appreciate how, where you began, even with your presentation about, and this speaks to who we'll be introducing next, but that the political, as Unión del Barrio says, their political south, their political work is even south of the border. And for you, from Alaska to Chile, we are experiencing settler colonialism here on this land, and it's different than what we see anywhere. And so I just really want to appreciate you for speaking to that aspect of this fight back. And we're so glad that you're here with us today. And we have an exciting panel of others who are going to help us continue to deepen this and to share their statements of solidarity with the resistance of the Palestinian people. So thank you, and we hope you stay with us. We have some questions in the chat that we hope to address later on in our program. So Director—
I will have to leave in a few minutes, but—
Okay, well, we'll know you'll be back and we know we'll see you.
Yes,
Uhuru. Uhuru. Right on. Thank you, Professor Ward.
Uhuru.
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 Thank you for coming on.
Yes.
Uhuru.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
Chair, are you ready to introduce our next?
Yeah, we could go ahead and move. I do want to see if we do have an update on fundraising, but maybe I'll throw that in after our next, so we can keep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it would be important. I'm sorry that Ward is left, because I would really like for us to consider transcribing and coming out with a package from this teaching that we can make accessible to all kinds of people everywhere. So,
I have not gone yet.
Okay, yeah, I think that would be really good. I think we've got an extraordinary piece of teaching equipment. If we can come out of here with a pamphlet, booklet, or something, I think we should consider that. I know we probably do some more of these, but we can take this stuff. I think it's potent. So Uhuru, thank you. All right, is that all right with you, Ward?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Splendid.
Working on it. Yeah.
Right on. Uhuru.
Yes, I mean, it would definitely be important to have all of this in paper form, especially considering all of the interference we've even experienced up to now. So be able to disseminate this, you know, out on the ground, these incredible presentations that you won't be able to find just walking into a library or, you know, to a local place to get a paper or something like that. So really salute all of the incredible presentations we've had. And of course, again, want to salute Professor Ward Churchill for coming on and, you know, providing that very important history, you know, to this discussion, the context that's necessary, you know, and the fact that, again, none of us live in isolation. We live in the world. And, you know, so everything that we are experiencing right now, we're directly connected to, have some kind of responsibility to. And, you know, this is allowing us to see what that responsibility is. And so to welcome up our next speaker is a comrade who is not just a city councilman representing East New York. He's also the leader of Operation Power and also revolutionary, and that is Comrade Charles Baron, who is here to provide his statement in support of the struggle in Palestine and with the struggle of all colonized people. So Uhuru, Comrade Brother Charles Baron, welcome to the program.
Well, Uhuru comrades, I'm very excited about today's program. This is a great time to be alive. We're witnessing a worldwide revolution. Palestine is in the limelight today, but look at Africa. Don't take your eyes off Africa, particularly in the Sahel region. When you look at what's happening in Burkina Faso, what's happening in Chad even, what's happening in Niger, what's happening in Mali, we're seeing all of that. And then the BRIC conference that happens in South Africa, where nations are coming together and saying no to the International Monetary Fund, no to the World Bank, no to the British pound, no to the European euro, no to the American dollar. So when you see all of that going on, you know that we're in the midst of a worldwide revolution. And this that occurred in Palestine is just an example of what's to come. So I'm excited that I'm glad that I'm alive in these times and we're in the middle of it. I want to say to the African People's Socialist Party that we have been blessed by your continued, consistent revolutionary fervor in the struggle for over 70 years. And we did present to the New York City Council, and you know, the City Council in New York is a tough nut to crack, but we did present our hands off the Uhuru Movement resolution to 51 council members. It's in committee now, and we're going to see to it that we get a hearing on it and have the chairman come and speak at the hearing by way of video or person, however he chooses. So we're very, very excited about that. We got a Cuban resolution passed in the City Council, and saying that Cuba should be taken off the so-called terrorist list and the embargo should be lifted. And we got a chance to meet with the president from Cuba and have that resolution actually pass the City Council. Of the 51 council members, we were able to get 45 of them to support and pass that resolution. So as we look at all of this that's going on, and we look at what has happened in Gaza and what's happening recently, we have to be excited about revolution. It's on fire all over the country, and looking at the chaos that the American government is in and almost shut down, open up, shut down Somebody called me up, one of the media people in New York said, well, how do you feel about these old Republicans and messing up and they may shut down the government? I said, well, the government been shut down to us. It never opened up. And this is why we need a revolution to make sure that it radically changes the system we live under, so it'll be open for us and the people of oppressed communities all over the world. So I'm excited about that. I want to read a statement on our position here in New York, but bear in mind as I read this statement, I'm reading it to get 51 council members to accept it. And these 51 council members, they visit Israel all the time with the speaker and mayor. They don't go to any other place. These are pro-Israeli council members. These are council members that most of them are crying for what happened in Israel. And some of us, if we come up with language that's soft, you get called anti-Semitic. And I hope one day we have a discussion and a history lesson on who are the Semites? Who are the real Jews of the Bible? They were Black, and the folk that are in Israel now, they're European converts to Judaism. They're not the Jews of the Bible. And why is it that everywhere these people have gone, they were persecuted and they weren't welcomed? So when Europe had their problems with this Jewish community and the Irgun and others were blowing up hotels and killing Tommies, European police, London police, then Lord Balfour said, look, get them out of our here and let's go on and send them to Palestine. They wanted to take Uganda or Argentina for a homeland for the Jews, but they went behind Lord Balfour and the power of British imperialism and colonialism and fought off the Ottomans before that and then took over Palestine ever since. So this resolution that I'm going to read to you, or this language, you know, if I wrote it just for us, it would be very, very different. But I want you to keep in mind that this is a city council that has considered me an anti-Semite, and the ADL has a whole dossier on everything I've ever said. And so this resolution was put in language to get some of my colleagues to be supportive, and some of them have, and some of them, and I'm still getting beat up for something like this that ain't even as strong as I normally would do in trying to pull them in. So bear that in mind. Let me be very clear, the attack on Israel by Hamas on October 7th, 2023 was not, quote, an unprovoked attack. It was inevitable and must be put into historical context and cannot be used as a justification for escalating the continuing genocide against the Palestinian people. This was for my team there in the city council because they're afraid. Let me state unequivocally that I've always deplored any intentional killing of innocent, non-combatant women and children and men in any theater of war anywhere in the world, including the Middle East. The road to so-called peace in the so-called Middle East can be achieved if the international community calls for the apartheid Israel government to end colonialism. Wanted to put apartheid and colonialism together because some of them are really only on racism. They can't handle colonialism, but this is my way of getting them transitioned to colonialism as an analysis. The government to end its decades-long colonization and illegal immoral occupation of Palestinian land since the Balfour Declaration in 1917. The international community must support the right of Palestinian refugees who were forcibly displaced from their land to return to their homes. From the Englishman Lord Balfour's declaration in 1917 to support the Jewish people in establishing a national homeland in Palestine to the Nakba catastrophe, where 700,000 to 800,000 Palestinians were displaced from their homes in 1947 to establish a Jewish state in 1948, to the present, tens of thousands of innocent Palestinian women and children and men have been killed by Israeli forces. In 2014, a United Nations report documented that in the attack on the Gaza Strip, the Israeli Defense Force killed 1,523 Palestinians, which included 509 children. Earlier this year, before the October 7th attack, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Donald Trump of the Middle East, and his fascist right-wing government annexed more settlements in the West Bank, killing over 239 Palestinians, and 40 of them were children. The armed Jewish civilian settlers participated in the killings, according to international support. So when they say that innocent civilians are being killed in Israel, these civilians are armed settlers, many of them, that participated in the killing of Palestinian people and the theft of their land. The United States for decades has supplied the state of Israel with billions of dollars worth of arms to continue the occupation of Palestine and Palestinian land. For over 16 years, Israel has imposed an illegal blockade on Gaza. Nothing comes in by land, sea, or air. No food, no electricity, no fuel. The blockade did not start as a reaction to this last attack. This madness must stop. How much blood must be spilled before the world unites to end the occupation of Palestine by Israel? Free Palestine. And we feel that this statement, along with some other stuff that we can at least open up their minds to, can perhaps win over some of our backward thinking blacks and whites and so-called socialist progressives. It is pathetic. You know, people talk all of this stuff, but once they get in there. So in the belly of the beast, I got to develop language that can move them to where we are. And this, even this, they said was the most radical revolution, everything they ever heard. I'm anti-Semitic, I hate Jews, I'm anti-this and anti-black. I said, first of all, you are not the Semites. Semites are us, and I can never be anti-me. So I don't even want to hear no anti-Semitism. And rather than do that, let's have some intellectual open debate on the issue instead of just calling me an anti-Semite, so you don't have to deal with the truth because you can't handle it. So I had the opportunity in 2009 to go to Palestine, to the Gaza Strip. I'll never forget Gil Noble, one of the great journalists of the great program Like It Is here in New York. He was just so worried about me going to Palestine, to the Gaza Strip, but I went with Cynthia McKinney and to one whom you all are very familiar with, Brother Matulu from Dead Prayers. And we went over there with George Galloway. He was a whole
bunch of stuff I'd like to gotten in there, but
he was in the parliament. Say that again? Oh, he was in the parliament of London. So when we got there, we had to pass through the border of Rafah, the place that they sealing off now. And this is significant to mention because they're saying, get out of there because we're going to blow up everything. Go where? The only place is to go through that border, Rafah, which we have problems getting through. The Egyptian army met us at the border, and I had to go back and negotiate with the foreign minister in Cairo of Egypt to get us to go through. And he finally said, okay, we're nervous because Israel's nervous about y'all, but y'all can bring the aid through, but only in 24 hours. When we got in there, the place was like, oh man, like imperialist World War II. It was devastated, rubble. So what we seeing now is what's already happening there. They already didn't have food and water. I mean, this was in 2009, and even before that, it's been what the place was blown to bits and nothing but rubble all over the place. And we met with the Palestinian people and gave the aid. But this has been a long-standing struggle. And now, with their attempts to probably level the Gaza Strip, there's no way they could win this war. No way they're going to win. When you look at the whole world, it's going to flip. They start off with their propaganda machines getting support from the world, but then the world is flipping on them, and a lot of resolutions over the years have been passed against them in the United Nations, and America vetoed a lot of those resolutions. So this is going to be a major defeat for the colonial state of Israel. This is the final days of their domination, the final days of the domination of colonialism and the colonial mode of production all over the world. In Africa and Asia and Latin America, you're going to see a real strong revolutionary comeback of these forces all over the world. And I'm just glad to be a part of the Uhuru movement here in the belly of the beast. We're going to win. We're going to win our case. And when we win our case, because they did this, we're going to be known even all greater all over the world, the chairman and all of the comrades that are fighting this good fight. So this is a great time to be alive. It's a sad time for the bloodshed and for so many lives that's going to be lost, but we're witnessing the birth pains of a new age, of a new society, of new governments coming into place. And we here in the belly of the beast are going to play a major role in the final defeat, putting the final nail in the coffin of domestic colonialism, of global colonialism all over the world, and the liberation of our people. We're going to be witnessing this in our lifetime. Uhuru, comrades.
Uhuru. Uhuru, thank you, Councilman Charles Baron. And you know what a great example of what it looks like to take on the colonial question and to be a revolutionary in any aspect and place where we are. And I just really want to salute your work as you mentioned, the 2 resolutions that you've put forth, and that we will make them have to listen to the people. And I just want to salute you for just bringing it there. And we look forward to hearing from you and seeing Operation Power on the ground in Washington, D.C. And Uhuru, thank you, Councilman Charles Baron, and Black Power. Yeah. Uhuru. All right. So comrades, I just want to really just take a moment to acknowledge those who have gone to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. And we're going to formally thank these recent donors later, but I want to just salute Leah Matum, Deputy Chair Onazane Yeshitela, who is the architect behind the Black Power Blueprint on the ground in St. Louis, Kat, as well as Sam and Becky, who went to handsoffuhuru.org and are helping us to, and I see another pledge in the chat here from Angelica. Thank you so much, Angelica. Comrades, we are on our way to making this fight back, happen on every aspect of this. So I just want to salute you, comrades, and I want to bring up our next speaker. And to, one thing we have always said around the importance of recognizing the righteous struggle for the indigenous people of this land is the relation of the relationships that we have as colonized people in the struggle for our own national liberation, for our own liberation struggles. And the struggle for La Raza can be expressed through this work of Unión del Barrio. And I just really want to salute Undersecretary Benjamin Prado, who is here with us on the call to deliver a statement in solidarity with Palestine and the Mexican indigenous liberation struggle, which will see itself to the end. Venceremos, and welcome, comrade.
All right, Uhuru, comrades, first of all, I really want to appreciate, this teaching, the significance of it, the historical moment that we're in, that we're living, really putting the anti-colonial fight back, right, front and center. So I really want to appreciate this. Number 2, I'm really honored to be on with all the distinguished comrades that preceded me, for Unión del Barrio since our founding in 1981. We have expressed our support and solidarity with all oppressed peoples around the world in the right to resist and the right to fight back against settler colonialism. And we express our solidarity with the bold resistance of the Palestinians, who are on their land, waging a struggle to really defeat the Israeli terrorist state, the settler colonial state, and as Mexicans, an organization based in California, for over 40 years, we have struggled for the self-determination of the Mexicano indigenous people within the political borders of the United States. And it's important to lay out that we recognize ourselves as indigenous peoples, that in fact it was colonialism, settler colonialism, that invaded our lands, that created this war, settler colonial war, under the same premises of somehow, white people being the chosen people under this terrible doctrine of manifest destiny. And it is all right to resist settler colonialism. And, we say this past week, we recognize the importance of indigenous resistance because there's a lot of now even talk about recognizing Indigenous Peoples Day. But what we recognize is the indigenous people's right to resist every single day, to confront the horrendous policies of settler colonial terror on our own land, and the slanderous speak that the media moves forward by saying that somehow we're illegal aliens on our own land. We reject those concepts, and we reaffirm our right to exist on our lands, to reclaim our lands, to reclaim our resources, to reclaim the value of our labor, so that we can live with freedom on our own land as dignified people as well. We condemn the normalized violence and terror that the Israeli state has inflicted against the people of Palestine. We reject the false notion that Israel is simply defending itself. A colonizer state can never claim self-defense while on stolen land. As an organization, we reject and denounce all forms of state terrorism because we recognize, and we must say that we are diametrically opposed in the worldview that both the Israeli settler state as well as the US colonial settler state have on this question of terrorism. Because it was not the Palestinians who dropped bombs on Hiroshima or Nagasaki. It was not the Palestinians who kidnapped African people and terrorized them to come here and work as slaves on the plantations. It was not the Palestinians who invaded Mexican indigenous lands. It was not the Palestinians who created these political borders currently that divide our homeland. We know who the real terrorists are: those that occupy our land, those who daily attack our people, those who daily incarcerate children. And you can see it very clearly even on this colonial border here that we see, where young children are forced to live in conditions of complete destitution. And we reject the notion that somehow, the Palestinians fighting back against settler colonialism are somehow acts of terror. Moreover, we are unapologetically uphold the right of colonized people to engage in anti-colonial armed struggle to defend themselves and to defend their absolute right to exist. We denounce US imperialism as represented by those political parties, two political parties that are in consensus when it comes to imperialism, when it comes to attacking people around the world to steal their resources. And we salute our Jewish comrades who have bravely taken the righteous position of opposing the racist ideology known as Zionism and this Israeli oppression of the Palestinian people. Beginning in 1492, colonizers attacked native peoples, murdered millions, stole our lands, and since 1845, US settler colonialism has invaded Mexico and stolen our land as well. And today, when we see the history as brilliantly laid out by Comrade Achille, the 1848 Israeli settlers attacked Palestinians and stole the majority of their land and established this settler colonial state. We've seen the consequences of Israeli occupation suffered by the Palestinians, and it's that same oppressive colonial system that currently occupies our barrios. It is not lost upon us that the United States sends its occupying army in the form of the police, in the form of Border Patrol, in the form of ICE, to get trained by the Israeli military. They practice that occupation. They see it the way it's carried out in Palestine, and then they bring it here into our barrios, into our ghettos, onto the colonial border here, trained by the Israeli settler colonizing forces to inflict that same settler colonialism on us, right? And we see the same corporations in the form of Elbit Systems, ETA North America, Hewitt Corporation, or the Magal security systems. All these technology weapons used to monitor, to track, to oppress our communities are the same ones that were and have been created in the occupied Palestinian territories and used against Palestinians. So Unión del Barrio stands with the people of Palestine and with the righteous struggle for self-determination and the right to return to the illegally occupied lands. The bold resistance of the Palestinian people is understood as such by billions of people around the world. And we are confident that justice will prevail in Palestine. We unite with the vast majority of people across the world who support the Palestinian struggle for self-determination. And self-determination is the highest expression of democracy. And so for us, free all, we say self-determination for the people of Palestine. Viva la lucha palestina, from Palestine to Mexico. All these colonial walls will go and must go. And as many of the Palestinians have already expressed, and we express it too, es mejor vivir de pie que vivir de rodillas. It's better to fight on your feet than to live your life on your knees. Tierra y libertad, victory to the Palestinian resistance. Uhuru.
Uhuru, salute Comrade Benjamin Prado of the Unión del Barrio, the Mexican Liberation Organization. Really appreciate you, Comrade, for being on with us and just a profound statement, but not just a statement, practical unity with the struggle of colonized and oppressed peoples all around the world, including the long relationship and the long relationship with the African People's Socialist Party and the African Revolution. Thank you so much for joining us today. And, just want to acknowledge that at the same time, the U.S. is funneling, more and more resources that should be paid in reparations to African people, as they send these resources over to fund, the attack on Palestine through Israel. Joe Biden also is already proceeded with the process to extend this border wall to keep Mexican people from being able to come back onto their own land. This is all happening at the same exact time. And, so I think that those kind of profound contradictions have to be raised as a part of, the struggle that we're making, that, there is the struggle of the colonized and there's the struggle of the colonizer, and there's no straddling the fence, in this case, that the colonized are determined to be free and the colonizer has done everything in its power to ensure that colonized people will never know their freedom. But as it's been expressed today, we will win and we are winning. And something that was really important that Comrade Benjamin just noted was that it's billions of people around the world, who do not, in some way have, unity, do not have unity with, the colonial mode of production, and whether or not it's, acknowledged as such an obvious kind of, recognition that this is the colonial mode of production. But the fact is that there are more of us throughout the world, colonized, exploited, and oppressed peoples throughout the world who have suffered under the boot of the colonial mode of production, of the colonizer, who are struggling to change that world. And we've always been characterized as some kind of minority, as if it's like the minority opinion and as if we're some small groups. And part of how they've achieved that is picking us up and, taking us all and, dispersing us all throughout the world, or expelling us from our land and creating a situation where we have to move as refugees into other places, or carving up our lands and redefining us as something else, even though we're one people. And this is a project that's extended all across the globe. And just to bring, to help relay this point, I want to welcome up our next speaker, who is Comrade Allize, a solidarity officer with Anakbayan, the Filipino revolutionary organization, and also in Anakbayan, San Diego, who is on the ground in San Diego as this teaching is happening with other comrades. So want to welcome Comrade Allize. Thank you for joining us. Uhuru.
Uhuru comrades. Yes, so my name is Allize. I'm Nicaraguan American. And so through, my own family history of like leaving our homeland because of US imperialism, this hits really deep for home. And as solidarity officer in Anakbayan, really seeing how all of our histories are really connected and how we really need to link and raise how the structure of imperialization and colonization really have affected those in Palestine as well. So we stand with you as Anakbayan San Diego, a chapter of the organization Anakbayan USA and the alliance member of Bayan USA. As militant youth fighting for genuine democracy in the Philippines, we salute the continued valiant and coordinated efforts of the Palestine people struggling to be free against the state which claims to be invincible. The Al-Aqsa flood is a statement to the strength of the people united against their colonizers and is an inspiration to liberation movements around the world. We support the just Palestinian struggle for self-determination, liberation, and return against Zionist violence and occupation. We have a shared struggle with the Palestine people against US imperialism and fascism. We condemn former Philippine President Duterte for his remarks on Gaza, saying that he would make Gaza the world's biggest cemetery. As we grieve, we also refuse to see overseas Filipinos workers as a pawn in an international conflict. Over 2 million Filipinos work in the Middle East and the overseas workers have been killed. However, their loss is not a result of the Palestinians' freedom struggle, but it is an outcome of state terrorism and neglect. Filipino migrants are victims of a terrorist state. They are in Israel because the Philippine government has systematized their migration abroad, displacing them from their homes and neglected to care for them as they fight exploitation, discrimination, and outright violence. As we demand consular services for all overseas workers and Philippine nationals, we have only been met with further surveillance. We call on our fellow Filipinos and all people to join in support for the Palestinian cause. We will continue the fight against US imperialism and its support of the Zionist Israeli state. And we will stand ready to share the truth, to join in protest and action, and to celebrate the resistance of the Palestinians in Gaza, across occupied Palestine, and all across the world. Uhuru comrades, thank you.
Uhuru Comrade Allize, thank you so much for being here and sharing this statement from Anakbayan, the Filipino Liberation Organization. And I know you're right there on the ground representing Anakbayan in San Diego, and just really appreciate also just the profound support that Anakbayan has extended, to, this struggle as a part of the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition as well. And, just really excited to have all these forces recognizing, reflecting, the colonized and oppressed of the world at the Black People's March on the White House on November 4th. So Uhuru, salute to you, Allize and Anakbayan. And I will go ahead. We have a couple of more speakers today, comrades. It's just been very powerful. You see these comrades here, again, representing different places throughout the world, in different struggles that are all, not different struggles, but, different, peoples, representing one struggle against one colonial mode of production, and that it's erupting, it's unfolding all throughout the world. And, such as it's been expressed today, it's such an exciting time, an important period in history we are witnessing, but not just watching it from the sidelines, actively a part. And so I'm going to turn it back over to St. Louis at the Uhuru House, where we have Comrade Zaki Baruti joining us. Zaki Baruti is the President General of the Universal African Peoples Organization, a leader right there in the ground in St. Louis, Missouri. Also, has been a strategic force utilizing the electoral arena as well to bring these politics, inside, this space that's ordinarily dominated, by the colonizer and, its henchmen. So welcome, Comrade Zaki Baruti. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Okay, thank you. Assalamu alaikum, Uhuru. Let me say on behalf of the Universal African Peoples Organization, we stand shoulder to shoulder with the Palestinian cause, and we speak forcefully against the occupiers of Zionism in the state of Palestine, also called Israel. Let me just say today has been an extraordinary day for myself personally. I've just come from here in St. Louis, a press conference that was called by the National Campaign for Human Dignity. And at the press conference, although there was a little slight differences on our position and their position as relates to how we see Israel in its entirety, there were several key points that were made that we are in total support of. And I'm sure many of the speakers prior to me are in support of those positions. As first of all, there has to be a rallying cry across the globe to end the blockade, supply water, food, fuel, medicine, and electricity to the civilians in Gaza. Also, should be an immediate cessation of the hostilities and bombardment that's taking place daily upon the people of Gaza, as well as it should be an immediate cessation of the Israeli government to push to expel the more than 2 million Palestinians from their birthplace, Gaza. But also, let me just say, our organization, I'm proud to say, we're part of a force that was organized by the Kwame Ture, also known as Stokely Carmichael, which created what was called the Worldwide African Zionist Movement that was actually based in Libya under the auspices of the Mataba. So we stand consistently with the need to put a total end to the regime, the apartheid regime led by Netanyahu, forgive my ebonics. But the reality, and let me just digress for a second. Let me salute the African People's Socialist Party for putting together this teach-in, because the propaganda machine across America is working 24/7, fooling our people. And we have to begin to go out into the streets to re-educate our people, because our people are falling, many of them are falling hook and sink to this mass propaganda that's been pushed, as I just said, 24/7. So it's also, I'd like to make an announcement too, that tomorrow for people in St. Louis, the Palestinians, from what I understand, would be holding a rally at Kena Plaza at 4 p.m. And so I'm encouraging everyone, all of the progressive forces, to be in attendance. Also, let's be clear that the United Nations Human Rights Commission that was formed in the early part of the 2006, has passed over 45 resolutions condemning the government of Israel for the human rights violations of the Palestinian people. Those 45 resolutions are double the number of resolutions against other countries of the entire globe. So obviously, this government, I always like to put it in simple terms, is a demon government. Let's just be clear. It is demon. And it's like vampires. And what do you do with a vampire? You put a stake in his heart. And that's what needs to be done, a stake in the heart of the government of Israel, the Zionist government, which is supported by this Zionist government too, on the real side. And as Black people in this country, we need to put out a call that these billions and billions, probably up to trillions of dollars that's going to Ukraine, that's going to Israel, those should be our reparation dollars. And that needs to be the call. And then with that as a rallying cry, because we will be free.
Yes.
And one of the greatest contradictions has been exposed to what has just occurred, the tragic death of the thousands of people in Palestine that has been ongoing since the formation of the illegal government of Israel.
Yeah.
And one last thing, like my good brother, Charles Baron, I've been in that area. I've been in Israel. And I've seen first, I didn't get to Gaza, but in the cities in Jerusalem, it took me back to see the treatment of the Palestinian people there, took me back into history as far as the Jim Crowism of America. And when they talk about, and Biden is talking about the brutality that was visited upon the Israeli population, hell, has he ever spoke about the historic lynchings, the burnings of our people? So we have to point out those contradictions. And like my good brother, Charles Barron, I'm so excited because in my lifetime, our lifetime, we don't see a total change in world politics and the governance of different countries. Liberation in our lifetime. Liberation in our lifetime. Thank you.
Uhuru, thank you, Brother Zaki, Baruti, for that statement. And yes, liberation in our lifetime, we're going to see a life that is worth living, that has a future, and where all of our labor and our skills and our genius goes towards building a life that is in our own interest. And so I just want to salute you and appreciate you for that statement. And that was President General of the Universal African Peoples Organization, also known as UWAPO, Zaki Baruti. So thank you so much. I want to welcome up next, part of this fight back is the other aspect of one thing that the African People's Socialist Party, under the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela, fought to resolve, was the question of what to do about the white people, right? And here we are, where the Uhuru 3 is represented, the representative of the fight for the African working class in Chairman Omali Yeshitela, but also Solidarity, who we heard from earlier, Jesse Nevel, who is the chairperson of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And now we would like to hear from Penny Hess, who is the chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee. And I just want to salute you, comrade, and who is also the vice chair of the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback, and works under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, the organization of white people who are in the struggle for reparations. So thank you, Chairwoman Penny. I see you on Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you, Chairman Wazy. And I want to salute this powerful event today. This is really historic. I want to salute my leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Deputy Chair Onasene Yeshitela, and the African People's Socialist Party. And I also want to salute the profound presentation made by USM Chair Jesse Nevel. That was really, really powerful. And what I am very, very moved about today, first of all, is that Chairman Omali Yeshitela has given us, as Jesse said, the analysis to understand the world as it really is, and to enable us to, for the first time in history, as the colonizers, to be able to jump off the pedestal upon which we sit on the backs of African people, and not just be another self-appointed savior or Zionist or white leftist or just a parasitic white colonizer anymore, that we have the ability to join in a principled relationship to African, and thereby to all oppressed and colonized peoples, the Palestinian people, and all people struggling against this colonial mode of production on the various fronts that they're from. And, I just want to salute, and first of all, and really, really say what the fact that the chairman created the African People's Solidarity Committee, the organization of white people directly under the leadership of the party, has changed the world. It is part of what is changing the world right now, and understanding this colonial mode of production, this vicious reality that we all live in, as has been said, that we all have a relationship to. We as the colonizers facing African people and Palestinian people as the colonized, and that we also can play a role. There is a place for us, but we have to take responsibility for what white people have done and do, and all of the Tulsas and the burning of African cities and African human beings, and the lynching and the terror, and all that we have done every single day since this place was founded at the expense of African and Indigenous people, with genocide being carried out by a popular stand, like the chairman called the white people's army. The white people's army of just the regular white population that took upon ourselves to slaughter African and Indigenous people so that we could steal their land and be the Zionists. The same relationship that Israel has modeled is based on what this United States is built on: genocide, terror, and colonialism. And I also want to salute you, Chairman, because you have always put out the entire analysis of the question of Palestine in an anti-colonial way. And there was a time when people did not do that. You were the only one who did that, who stood there and said Palestine is occupied by the illegitimate state of Israel, and the land belongs to the Palestinian people, not just Gaza, not just the West Bank, not just parts of Jerusalem, the entire, what is called Israel belongs to the Palestinian people, just as this land, as you have always stood for that this land belongs to the indigenous people. And I remember, I just want to relate that the international solidarity between the African People's Socialist Party and the Palestinian people and all oppressed, the Nicaraguan people, all of the oppressed peoples of the planet, China, and of course, African people as one people, but this has always been, what you fought for. And this is how I learned what international solidarity means and what it is from the stand of the party, that there is no difference between Africans and Palestinians, between Africans and Filipinos, between Africans and Indigenous. It is another front of the same struggle, of which the African liberation movement has this incredibly wide embrace that takes everybody with them to fight and to win as one, not as isolated, and has really given white people for the first time the ability to genuinely be part of that in a principled way, and make our self-criticism by being organized under the leadership of the African Revolution and fighting in the white community as we are directed strategically by the party to win reparations, literally, to African people. And, I just wanted to convey that I remember, first of all, that the party's resolution at the first party Congress, the very first resolution was the resolution in solidarity with the Palestinian people by the African Revolution. And that was in 1981. Yeah. And that I remember an experience. I was, talking to Maureen about it. Comrade Maureen out in California I think she was there too. But I had the honor of being at this incredible event held in San Francisco I thought it was held at a labor hall it was at a huge hall. Maureen said it was maybe at San Francisco State University. Maybe that's where it was. There was probably 1,000 people there. It was vast majority. It was an event about the Palestinian struggle. And the majority of the people were Arab and Palestinian from around the state of California. And the chairman got to speak. And of course, it was so many speakers. So the chairman only got about like 3 to 5 minutes max to speak. He got up and in one sentence, in his first sentence, he put out such profound unity between African people in the US and around the world and the Palestinian people. It was electrifying. And all of the Arabs and the Palestinians started stamping their feet and cheering to the rooftops. The people united will never be defeated. Yeah. And the chairman couldn't even, you couldn't even speak. You couldn't even speak for probably 5 minutes then. And when you came down off the stage, they just mobbed you. And, I've just seen what you have meant to the people on the planet Earth, to the Palestinian people, to so many other, others who have said, you are our leader. And, you are our leader. And just this understanding that that the road to socialism is painted black. There is not another way to be a socialist except to be an opportunist and to be, a white colonizer in a different face. And so I'm just profoundly, this event today is profoundly moving and powerful. And I know that, Chairman, that you are responsible for so much of what the world understands about this today, because you have fought for the colonial question when others are calling it apartheid, when others are calling it racism. You have fought for that analysis and brought it to the world. The colonial question, that's what we're seeing, playing out in the West Bank and, right on the ground there in the West Bank today. The colonial question is rearing its head, as you have said. And we do have the opportunity as white people, but we have to join. We have to be organized under the leadership. It's not just something we can sit in a cafe and think about, that we could be African internationalists and read the chairman and quote him. We have to do the work. All of the hundreds of years that white people have been lynching and killing and slaughtering African and other people, we have to go back in and win and win and win reparations, what is owed to African people, and win other white people to join in solidarity, to jump off this pedestal, to join the future of this planet, to stand under the leadership of the African Revolution, which puts us in a principled relationship to all of the oppressed and colonized people on the planet Earth. So I just want to say unity through reparations. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Uhuru. Thank you, Chairwoman Penny. And yes, just want to salute you and just what is happening in the chat here on Zoom, just a lot of unity and with what is being called, and Comrade Angelica says, no misguided guilt, but responsibility. And yes, we have a responsibility to the interests of the working class and in the struggle for the African People's Socialist Party, it's the African working class who we understand carries the brunt of this vicious and vile social system, and we have a responsibility to overturn it. So, comrades, we're going to move on to one last video that was able to make it in, the Malaya Movement USA. We want to appreciate those comrades who weren't able to make it, but who sent a video with solidarity. So I want to take a moment now and appreciate our engineer for pulling this up. This is Adine Tayag, who is the vice chairperson of Malaya Movement USA, and I want to give some time for us to hear their statement. Uhuru.
Hello and gratitude to the African People's Socialist Party and Hands Off Uhuru Coalition. We stand and move in solidarity with you all, especially as we fight to drop the charges against the Uhuru 3 and help advance the Palestinian people's fight for freedom. My name is Adine Tayag, Vice Chair of the Malaya Movement USA, representing anti-fascist Filipinos across the United States. As Filipino Americans who have stood up against killings, brutal displacement, false imprisonment, and torture of everyday people fighting for land and rights in the Philippines, Malaya Movement USA stands in solidarity with Palestinians who face the US-backed Israeli state's 75-year-long campaign to exterminate the Palestinian people. We stand in solidarity with those working towards a just and lasting peace in Palestine, which will only be achieved by solving the root cause of violence in the region, colonial occupation. The events that have happened since October 7 are a clear expression of the sheer will to fight for and defend the dignity and human rights of Palestinians who have long suffered under an oppressive occupation. Palestinians have been subjected to displacement and occupation for 75 years, and many of those who have resisted and fought for their right to land and livelihood in their own home have been imprisoned, silenced, and murdered. Israel has launched a complete siege of Gaza, cutting off the supply of electricity, food, water, and fuel to Palestinians on top of a 16-year blockade. We condemn Israel's indiscriminate military attacks and bombings in Gaza that have targeted densely populated residential areas, hospitals, UN schools, and shelters. As of this recording, on October 13, at least 1,900 people have been killed in Gaza, including 640 children and thousands more wounded. This is Israel committing genocide. These attacks and punishment are war crimes and clear violations of international humanitarian law and must end immediately. We are also seeing a shocking increase in malicious disinformation meant to dehumanize Palestinians who've been imprisoned in Gaza for generations, all to justify unmitigated violence by the Israeli state. It's sickening and reminds us of the orchestrated and financed disinformation by the Philippine state to erase history and justify the violations of international humanitarian law committed by Philippine officials and armed forces. So we urge Filipinos to be vigilant about the facts and be in solidarity with Palestine. The Israeli government and weapons manufacturers are actually complicit in the rise of fascist dictatorship in the Philippines, being suppliers of weaponry, training, and intelligence to the oppressive Duterte and Marcos regimes. The Israeli government is culpable in the murder and disappearance of countless human rights defenders and civilians, not just in Palestine, but the Philippines. Both the Israeli Defense Forces and Armed Forces of the Philippines are perpetrators of indiscriminate attacks on civilians, from aerial bombings to shellings, both violations of international humanitarian law. We condemn the United States government and Biden administration for its support of Israel and its annual $3.8 billion gift to Israel. As Malaya Movement continues to push for the Philippine Human Rights Act, which aims to suspend security assistance until human rights violations cease and a thorough investigation is conducted, it's necessary that we continue to expose the United States bankrolling human rights violations by the armed forces of the Philippines and the Israeli Defense Forces. We unequivocally echo the call, stop arming Israel. We condemn the Marcos Duterte regime for its thoroughly dishonest expression of solidarity for Israel following the strike in Gaza against the Israeli occupation. The Marcos Duterte government condemned the attacks, quote, especially on civilian populations, unquote. Even as the Philippine security forces unblinkingly bomb, hamlet, displace, imprison, torture, and kill civilians, especially peasants and indigenous peoples residing on mining or plantation land, with Israeli weapons, no less. Again, we urge Filipinos to be vigilant about the facts. It is our duty as Filipinos to firmly stand against fascism alongside our Palestinian siblings in their fight for survival, self-determination, and liberation. We call on Malaya Movement USA members to rise in solidarity and uphold our principles of defending and asserting human rights, democracy, and sovereignty from Palestine to the Philippines. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And from Palestine to the Philippines, stop the US war machine.
Uhuru. Yes, right on. Comrades, this has been a really powerful teaching, and I just want to really appreciate that segment of today's program where we got to hear from those who stand in solidarity with the anti-colonial struggle and that are committed to helping to build this anti-colonial free speech movement. So I want to appreciate and salute Aldine for that solidarity statement, and appreciate Malaya Movement USA for joining us virtually on today. So we are at a very exciting part in our program, because pretty soon we're going to announce how much the people have been able to help us support, raise, and fund this drive for the legal defense for this fight back against the colonial state, and all the other ways in which we have to wage this fight back. But we are moving into Q&A, and I want to say that I want to appreciate Director Akile, who is off to another task right now, who is not emceeing or co-emceeing with me, but I just wanted to salute her profound leadership in this fight back. And on behalf of Director Akile, I do want to remind people that if you have not already gotten your issue of the November Burning Spear, you should find someone in your area who is distributing the spear. And if you don't have somebody, it should be you who distributes the Burning Spear. You can do this by going to the burningspear.store, the burningspear.store, and our chat moderators can put that in the chat. This is a way for us to continue to have these kind of discussions. This newspaper is lasting example of the relentlessness of the African People's Socialist Party to be able to put the objective truth in the front, in front of the people, and to say that, we're not dumb. We understand what's happening, and even if we don't, we know something's wrong. And to be able to have like our own apparatus, how we can sum up what is happening in the world, is so important. I just want to salute the long live the Burning Spear newspaper, and let's keep this paper alive, and you can write, you can volunteer, and I want to appreciate those who are already doing that. So I just wanted to say that because this is where we're going to continue to have and find this analysis where we won't find anywhere else. So we have one question that was selected, that came in early, and that might be helpful for us to touch on. We have to kind of shorten some aspects of our program. So I do want to pose this question and let those who are on know, such as the chairman. We also have Lisa and Benjamin, and those who have stayed with us. We want to be able to sum up this question. So this question came from Mike Reeves. And what he says here is, what do you think about the possibility that this thing was set up to try to prevent the emergence of an anti-colonial system as is being led by the BRICS? Netanyahu covertly backed Hamas for years to weaken the Palestinian Authority when they were ready to make peace with Rabin. This attack has now set up Gaza for destruction and could prevent Iran and Saudi Arabia from joining the BRICS with a new war. Thoughts? He's asking, what are our thoughts? And why not a ceasefire and a two-state solution if that could prevent more needles or more needless bloodshed? So if you need access to that, panelists, I can find a way to get that to you if you lost that earlier on in the chat. But I want to open this up for anybody who else, who would like to come on and to address this question. But, one of the things that has been pretty clear throughout this particular program is the anti-colonial question. And we understand that everything, even BRICS, all of these functions and ways in which we try to solve the problems of imperialism and colonialism rest upon the economic base, which is which is the attack on Africa. And so this superstructure, even we can sum up BRICS as operating on this superstructure while it is posing a serious threat and is a contending power to the colonial state. And so I don't, I would obviously leave this to the chairman to even help deepen this question. And he has, multiple times, but I do want to just really appreciate the clarity that has been brought throughout this process of this teaching about the dialectic of the colonized and the colonizer, and how we are building and fighting to turn the world right side up, as the chairman has said before. So, I see you on here, Chairman. Did you want to speak to that?
I will.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's really interesting that almost every time a real meaningful and critical assault is being made against what's supposed to be the most powerful, far-seeing, all-knowing entity, state apparatus, the disbelief by some people that the oppressed could actually do this and makes it necessary for sometimes people to come up with extraordinary explanations. I watched somebody on a video yesterday talking about how it was all set up and they were let in and et cetera, with Hamas. So I don't know if the intelligence apparatus of the Israeli state has ever had a relationship with Hamas or not. I can see how they would see it in their strategic interests. In fact, I know that there have been occasions when things like that have happened. Even the United States government under Brzezinski and James Earl Carter, worked to empower the jihad and to attack Afghanistan. The rest of that. But the point is that even if that happened, it has certainly backfired on them. I've known of instances where colonized people have assumed that somehow they can come into some kind of relationship with a sector of the colonial powers to achieve their aims, et cetera. In most instances, that their aims are not achieved. But I don't know if anything like that has ever. What extent, if any, this happened with the settler state of Israel. But what I do know is that if in fact the settler state played a role in this, it was a horrible mistake. Because the issue is always more than just the physical defeat of the oppressor. One of the most incredible things, the thing that troubles them more than anything else, is the example of a success against the oppressor. So if in fact Israel has helped the peoples of the world to believe that an impoverished, besieged, starved population under the worst circumstances, under the greatest security apparatus in the world, could come together and come into into Israel with this offensive. If the settler state did that, it certainly did something that would excite and mobilize and inspire oppressed peoples all around the world. So that would be an instance of picking up a big rock and dropping it on their feet. I don't believe they did that. I think that the people's will to struggle and defeat our oppressor is always there. And I've seen instances where in my life, in this colony within this United States of North America, I've seen the colonized African population take on this security apparatus with tremendous amount of success. And I've known it to happen to Vietnamese, other people. The colonizer always has the advantage in terms of technology and resources, et cetera, and the colonized have always had to overcome that in order to defeat them, in order to gain anything that approximates freedom. So I believe that the Palestinian people want to be free, and I believe that they've done incredible things to make that manifest. And also, I know this is not the first time that the Palestinians have surprised and shocked them and other peoples around the world. That's what oppressed peoples do. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairman, very, very helpful to help clarify. And just, again, Palestinian people want to be free, African people want to be free. And even here we are just, again, talking about the attack on freedom of speech, and just even saying it is enough of a threat. And so I want to also appreciate the rest of our panelists who have joined us here today. And I just want to join in really saluting all of the guests that were here and unable to make it. I want to salute and appreciate Jesse Nevel, who is the chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. I want to appreciate, obviously, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who just helped us to deepen the analysis of where we are in this period in the world. I want to thank Professor Ward Churchill, who is an expert and done lots of research on COINTELPRO, which, as we see, this attack is still happening today, and spoke to the conditions around settler colonialism here, as well as Compa Benjamin Prado of Unión del Barrio. I want to thank Councilman Baron of the city of New York. And I also want to appreciate Allize with the Anakbayan, who is the solidarity officer with Anakbayan San Diego, and Zaki Baruti, the President General of the Universal Peoples African Organization, or a Universal African Peoples Organization, Uhuru, as well as Penny Hess, the chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee, and our statement from Aldine Tayag, who is the vice chair of Malaya Movement USA. So such a powerful program today, comrades. And I don't, for the sake of time, that's the only question that we're going to be able to take for today. But as the chairman said, we need to continue to do this. Find a community, find somebody's living room, bring the teaching to the people. This is the only way that we're going to continue to practice. We have to practice what it's like to be able to win this fight back. And we're going to take this to November 4th. We're going to meet on the ground. We're going to see each other for the first time. And I'm just very excited, comrades. And I think that there is no time than the present for us to make this happen in our lifetime. So I'm going to pull up our fundraising committee. Comrade Amanda, who is also the vice chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, and who was also one of the Uhuru members who was under attack on that day on July 29th. We're going to get a quick update from the appeal to see how we did on our resources and raising for today, but I just want to already salute and all the people who went to handsoffuhuru.org/donate to make it happen. So here comes Comrade Amanda. Thank you, Comrade. I'm going to turn it over to you, Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you, Chair Mwezi. As was said, my name is Amanda, and I am the vice chair of the fundraising committee for the Hands Off Uhuru, and I have the honor of also being a member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And we work under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, winning reparations from the white community. I want to express my sincere unity with the analysis that has been put out in this teach-in, in particular that of Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And I want to salute the leadership of the chairman, Chair Mwezi, and everybody that spoke today for this teach-in. We salute the resistance of the Palestinian people, and we say hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa, victory to the Palestinian people. So the fundraising committee, we can go to the next slide, wants to thank the thousands of you who have contributed over $245,000 since the FBI attacks last year. So thanks to all of your support, this committee has been able to secure lawyers and other needs for this campaign, and has been able to continue the pushback against the brutal US government oppression against the Black Liberation Movement. Thanks to your support, the Uhuru 3 legal team filed a powerful motion for dismissal of the indictment. We can go to the next slide again, which led to a hearing in Tampa where arguments were presented by the Uhuru 3 lawyers and the prosecutors before a federal magistrate judge. So any day now, the judge ruling can come down, deciding whether the bogus charges will be dismissed outright or will proceed to trial to a tentative date set for next year. But we are clear that no matter what the outcome of the judge's ruling, the war is not over and the struggle continues. So whether it's preparing for trial or for civil litigation against the federal government or both, the counteroffensive as expressed in the legal arena has just begun. So funds are still urgently needed, and we are just $32,000 away from completing this first phase of our campaign. And we can go to the next slide. So our goal for this meeting was to raise $500, but I am excited to announce that we have actually already raised $755.
Uhuru.
And I just want to appreciate those that have donated so far. We have Karpani who gave 20, MQ that gave 15, Leah gave 200, Batum gave 20, Onazane Yeshitela gave 100, who in the room with us here, Kat Turner gave 30, Sam Jackson gave 50, Becky Camo gave 20, Quaker gave 50, Angelica pledged 100, Randy Lore gave 20, and then Kitty in the room with us as well gave 30. So that brings us up to that amount. So you can go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. And I am confident that we can actually double our goal today. We are only $245 away from that. So people are welcome to match. Anyone that gave $100, you can also match Leah, who gave $200 to get us even closer. We have someone in the room here.
50.
And we have 50 from Jesse Nevel, or Huru Jesse. So that brings us to 805. And I'm just going to, if you forgive me, peek at the website and see if anything else has come in. 25 from Penny Hess, or Huru Penny Hess in the room with us as well. Yeah, so, we want to really encourage people to go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. You can go to the next slide as well. Another way you can contribute is by becoming a sustainer of the Hands Off Uhuru campaign. Being a sustainer means that every single month you are giving a certain amount of money to this campaign. It's something that we can count on to come in. We can use it to budget for monthly expenses. It's very significant. And maybe you want to give $1,000, but you can't do that all at once. Well, you can give $100 a month, and you will actually give more than $1,000 over the course of a year. So that's one way you can contribute. And then you also can become a member of the Hands Off Uhuru Coalition, which is either $10 for an individual person to join or $25 for an organization. So all of that is very significant in contributing to this goal. And just one thing I wanted to add, that while the Palestinian people are fighting back, the colonial governments of US and Europe are escalating their attacks on the rights of colonized people to freedom of speech. The government of Germany has declared the Samadun illegal, which is a Palestinian prisoner organization that's also part of the Hands Off Uhuru coalition. The government of France has outlawed all pro-Palestinian demonstrations. And it makes it even more urgent that we do everything we can to donate to this legal defense fund, which is fighting for victory, for free speech for African people, which will signal a victory to all oppressed people fighting for free speech all over the world. So you can fund the fight back today, join today, and defend the anti-colonial free speech movement. I'm just going to look one last time on the website to see if we have any other donations or from anybody else in the room as well. And after I am off the screen, you can also continue to go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Uhuru. Uhuru, Comrade Amanda. Wow. I just want to salute the people, honestly, because like you said, we are inches away this and go ahead today, place that I will do webinar. So if anyone wants to match me, go ahead and just let us know 51515 and that you got 5 on it. So comrades, we are moving towards the end of our program, and I am very excited to wrap us up with my comrade, Vice Chair Lisa Davis, who is Vice Chair of the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations.
I've been sitting patiently waiting to just yell Uhuru.
Uhuru, Vice Chair Lisa, it's time for the 15th annual Black People's March on the White House.
Yes, November 4th.
Yes, November 4th, and I want to just say that it was a pleasure to meet you the last year when I went, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again this year, comrade. And I'm gonna just, remind everybody that the reason that we are here, Black is Back and Hands Off Uhuru, is because the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition is co-sponsoring this year's 15th annual march on the White House. And Sister Lisa Davis and I are going to take us through a quick update on where we are and where you need to be in order to make sure that you can get there on the ground.
Yes, and it must be successful. We want it to be more powerful than it's ever been before. We need people there on the ground in DC, November 4th.
Uhuru, comrade. So here's some pictures of us last year on November 4th, starting at Malcolm X Park, and then as we will march to Lafayette Park. So, if you want to volunteer, and if you were there last year and you want to get more involved, this is the part of the segment of today's program where you will let us know so we can make it happen. And I want to acknowledge, which I don't know if this was announced, but another donation, $10 from MQ. So Uhuru MQ helping us take it forward to November 4th. So, Comrade Lisa, why don't we tell the people where these mobilizations are going to be taking place? Uhuru.
Yes, we're going to have mobilizations definitely taking place in Washington, D.C., starting with Malcolm X Park, and then we're going to be marching to that house of ill repute, the White House. Los Angeles, California. Comrades are organizing on the West Coast in Los Angeles, in London, the UK, Pretoria, South Africa, occupied Azania. Demonstrations and protests of support will be taking place. And also, let me just say this, if you all are someplace and you want to organize something, you can organize in your region as well.
Yes, right on.
Let us know about it.
That's really important. Yes, this is, let us know. You can email us at info@blackisbackcoalition.org. You can email info@handsoffwahuru.org. We'll make sure that we help you get what you need to make it happen. And I do want to, and I would be remiss if I did not mention that in Venezuela, comrades there as well are holding, symbolic representations and stands of solidarity for November 4th. So we are taking this to all corners of the globe. So, speaking of the West Coast mobilization, we wanted to put this out that to remind people, the chairman was just here on it. Well, the Uhuru 3 were just here in the West Coast for a tour, and we want to remind the people about the West Coast Regional Action on November 4th. This is happening in Los Angeles, California. APSC Chair Penny Hess will be there. One of the Uhuru 3 will be on the ground marching with us on the West Coast. So again, this is the information that you can, if you want more information about this, you can go to blackpeoplesmarch.com or handsoffwahuru.org for more information. Uhuru. And outreach materials, if you need to print, and we're gonna have, this will be updated soon, so that people can also share on social media, and in many other ways, you can share this information with the world. But we want you to download the outreach material. You can go to blackpeoplesmarch.com/outreach, and you can print and download flyers.
Yes, and pass them out in your neighborhood. You can also download posters, put the posters up in your neighborhood. We want to let the colonizers know we are fighting back. We've never stopped.
All right, transportation. Go ahead, comrade.
Yes, and this is where people can go to check out what's currently going on in their area. We are organizing buses to come to DC, buses and vans. So you can go to this section on the website. We have people that are organizing from Chicago, Illinois, the Newark, New Jersey, New York area. I know I saw some New York and New Jersey folks on this chat. Get on the bus, get on that bus. Philadelphia, PA, people will be organizing a bus from St. Louis, Missouri, and currently St. Petersburg, Florida. And again, get on the bus. And you can just click on those links and it'll tell you how to get in touch with the people in that area who are organizing.
Right on. Yeah. So you can go to handsoff or to blackpeoplesmarch.com and you'll see the link for transportation, where you can directly go and fill out that form, tinyurl.com/GOTB, which is Get on the Bus 2023.
Yes.
Thank you, comrade. And so, yeah, how do we register? Where do we go? As we said before, blackpeoplesmarch.com. And Comrade Lisa Davis, if you want to just talk about endorse, like how can people endorse?
Yes, people can go click on the link, and the link will tell you how you can endorse. You can endorse as an organization, endorse as an individual. It is so important that we get as many endorses as we can. Also, please make sure that you're following the Black is Back Coalition social media pages and also the Hands Off Uhuru social media pages, because we are going to be pumping out so much information. We have a presence on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and we just want to utilize every avenue that we have to put the information out there, and most importantly, to reach out to our people and to organize against this vicious, ruthless colonizing machine. We must fight back and organize against this. In the Black is Back Coalition, we stand with all oppressed people of the world. And I just invite people to also please go to the blackisbackcoalition.org and look at our demands and look at our 19-point platform. You'll see that point number 18 is Free Palestine. We take an international view about what is going on in this world. We say hands off Africa, hands off Haiti, colonizers go home, and we will be free. Uhuru.
Uhuru. And so, yes, comrades, let us know you're coming. Let us know, make it real. Go to blackpeoplesmarch.com and register. Click on the register now button. You see the countdown. We are 20 days away from this historic march. Put it in the chat. Tell us that you will be marching on November 4th, whether you're marching on the West or the East Coast or in Europe or in Africa or any other place in the world. Let us know. And so again, comrades, we just want to, before we go to announcements and move to close, make one last push that, we need this Black People's March. We see the situation that's happening in the world. Let's build the anti-colonial free speech movement. We got to get on the ground, comrades. Let them feel our presence. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Uhuru, comrade. Now, one step backwards, forward ever. All power to the people.
Power to the people.
Hey, Black power to the African nation.
Yes.
Uhuru. Thank you, Sister Lisa.
Thank you, Uhuru.
Uhuru, comrade. So I'm going to just take us through to announcements and then turn it over to the chairman with any closing remarks. We want to appreciate everybody for staying with us for just a little longer, but it's been a really powerful program. And I know Vice Chair Penny, if you also wanted to join me on this section, feel free, but I'm just going to quickly give announcements about the coalition that our next meeting will be on Monday, October 23rd at 7 p.m. This will be another open meeting, and we invite everybody to come and just, any last minute questions and things that we need to resolve before we march the following week. We want to let everybody know that the court transcripts are in. And just to give an update that the court hearing for the oral arguments on the Uhuru 3, as we summed up earlier, went fabulous and went, because the people showed up and we let the state know that they are not doing this in isolation or behind closed doors, and that the room was packed. Some people couldn't even get into the room, and that right there is the fire that is building in this campaign, in this fight back, in this building this anti-colonial free speech movement. So we want to salute our attorneys and remind people to continue to check handsoffuhuru.org for more updates about the court hearing. And as we know, we are preparing to put the state on trial, should they take it there. So there will be a press conference for those of you who are coming to Washington, D.C. on Friday, November 3rd at 12 p.m. Eastern at Sankofa Bookstore. There will be a press conference, and we want to invite everybody to register. That way you can get information about this press conference and be on the list, on the invitation list with more details. Last announcement is that Project Black Ankh, which is the African nations global response to our Red Cross. So this is the black version of the Red Cross. This is led by the All African People's Development and Empowerment Project. If you're on the ground in St. Louis tomorrow, Sunday, they are having a 1-hour free compression and CPR AED education class. And we want to say that if you have any questions, you can call this number 314-380-8016, and I'll put that in the chat. This is how you can get more information about this free education class. And thank you so much, chat moderator Chiwo, who put that in the chat for us right away. So please register, and you can also scan that QR code. But comrades, we want to just say in unconditional solidarity with the struggle of the Palestinian people, we want to say free, free Palestine, long live Palestine, victory to the Palestinian people. And let's build the anti-colonial free speech movement. And long live Chairman Omali Yeshitela. So Uhuru, comrades. Chairman, any closing words before we close out? Uhuru.
Comrade, I just want to express appreciation to everyone who's come on to this incredibly significant teaching. and to also remind everybody of the significance of the November 4th mobilization. It is historic, and it is our greatest wish that the unity that we've seen reflected here in terms of the Hands Off Uhuru committee that has been built, in terms of the July 8th conference that we had to consolidate the anti-colonial free speech movement. It's going to be really important to see that reflected in the turnout, and people coming from all the various places and from all the political locations that you occupy to November 4th, whether that's in Washington, D.C., whether that's in Pretoria, South Africa, whether that's in Los Angeles, California, whether that's in London, where people from Europe are being called to participate in a demonstration at the United States Embassy. So it's a critical moment in history where the various contradictions are coalescing, coming together, and the opportunity to make a great leap forward in this struggle is here, is upon us. This is, we believe, the major factor in tilting in a permanent kind of way, this uneasy equilibrium that the world has been locked in for a while between the past and the future, the past of colonial terror, domination of the peoples, and the future of liberation. Progress is on the side of the colonizers, and we really think this is important. And what's going to be a major breakthrough is the participation in so many people from the settler population, that is to say, white leftists and socialists and communists and various other activists, so to really be able to unite in this process. Nothing like this has ever happened where the colonizers have been able to call on a mobilization centering the colonial question in a way that magnifies or certainly clarifies reality that the whole rotten social system rests upon the backs of the enslaved, the colonially enslaved, people who've been living under the worst kind of domination for hundreds of years. So that's going to be a critical development, to see the white people able to join with us. And I think it's also appropriate to make this point again because of the ideological distortion of reality that we've seen coming around this question of Israel, is that this that we are talking about is something that offers freedom and liberation for the Jewish people. Because what it does is opens a door for Jewish people to join with the rest of the peoples around the world, to abandon your bourgeoisie, which is connected with the colonial project to oppress the peoples of the world. This is the salvation of Jews as well as it is for other peoples. The colonial question is something that's exploding, and the contradiction is making itself evident every day, and especially that is true on occupied Palestinian land. So we think that's important, and I feel confident in being able to say this, and because of the attempt that's often made to misconstrue the opposition to Palestine as some kind of opposition to Jews. That's your bourgeoisie that's told you that. Right. That's the bourgeoisie that's locked you into a relationship that's opposed to the rest of the peoples of the world. I criticize the state of Palestine. I criticize the Jewish bourgeoisie, just like I criticize the African petty bourgeoisie, just like I can criticize Barack Hussein Obama for the role that he plays, just like I can criticize Lord Austin, the guy who heads up the U.S. Pentagon, just like I can criticize the four-star general Marine, who's been made a four-star general for the purpose of putting him in charge of AFRICOM. I can criticize them. If I can criticize the Africans, if I can criticize these African neo-colonial forces, white power, in blackface dominating African people around the world, and where I'm located right now, I damn sure can criticize the bourgeoisie, the Jewish bourgeoisie. And I'm calling on you to have the integrity to do that, to abandon. Do not stake your future on the future of the bourgeoisie, whether it's Jewish, whatever the German, or whatever the hell it is. The bourgeoisie is sinking, and it'll drag you down with it if you're not careful. So we're talking about a movement that liberates humanity, not there to oppress Jews or anything else. And the only reason that one can think that is the same reason somebody comes up to us and say, when we say Black power, they say, what about the white people? The point is, unless you stand on the backs of Black people, Black power doesn't mean a threat to you. It offers you an opportunity for liberation as well. So I wanted to say that people look for the mystery around the Tet Offensive. I was just talking to a dear comrade, I think my wife, a day or two ago, and why would they do this now? There was a question. And of course, we've seen the thing that's being raised. When I say they, I'm talking about the Palestinians. And we've seen the questions about how somehow they had to be let in, or somehow the Iranians must have had something to do with it. I tell you what informed them. Tet. Yes. The Vietnamese Tet Offensive informed them. And so a lot of Palestinians will die, are dying as a consequence, just like with Tet. In terms of Tet Offensive in Vietnam, a lot of Vietnamese people died. They attacked, but they were supposed to already have been dead. According to US bourgeoisie, it was over, the war was over. And then when Tet happened and hit them everywhere, despite the fact that Vietnamese bodies were all over the place, it demoralized, crushed the morale of the American population and made it necessary for them to get the hell out of Vietnam. I know that we've seen this cruel unity, apparent, outspoken unity articulated about killing Palestinians or what have you, coming from most of the media. And I'm sure that a lot of that happened in occupied Palestine as well, from the Zionist organizations. But I guarantee you that something has happened with that population, that settler population, that they've now had to pay attention like they never had to pay attention before to the fact is that this state is going to go down. They saw that. They had to be, and they makes it necessary for them to have to question why they're there. As long as an oppressor doesn't have to ask a question about why they're there, they will continue to occupy that. So something has happened. Tet Offensive, I'm sure, is what contributed to what happened with Hamas's massive breakout on October 7th. So we just want to call on everybody to come out for November 4th. Brothers and sisters and comrades everywhere, November 4th, let's get there. We're not going to get the Democratic Party money from their labor unions and other stuff to get us buses. We're going to have to scramble ourselves, use all of our resources, and believe enough in what it is that we are doing that we will make whatever necessary sacrifices to get to Washington, D.C., to get to L.A., to get to Pretoria, to get to the U.S. Embassy in London on November 4th. All power to the people, Black power to the African nation. Adelante siempre, forward ever, backwards never. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Uhuru, Chairman, Uhuru, comrades. Want to make the last announcement, 970 raised on today. Forward ever, backwards never, it's comrades. Uhuru.
Uhuru, very well.
Yeah.
Africa, we are winning. Shout Uhuru for our freedom. We are
what